Chapter 1. The Goddess of Headshots, Activating the System. First Blood. Upon awakening from a deep slumber, the apocalypse had arrived. Humanity had transformed into zombies, and flora and fauna had undergone mutations. Su Hao and the goddess found themselves trapped on the rooftop, first vanquishing a mutated goddess before triggering an infinite selection of divine choices. Amidst the cacophony of the undead's howls, Su Hao, wielding a steel pipe and a roll of tape, huddled with a stunning woman on the rooftop of the cafeteria at Suqing University. The cries from below were incessant, echoing through the night, more relentless than the crowing of roosters. They had been stranded on the roof for an entire night, with no means of escape. As dawn broke, Su Hao exhaled deeply and approached the edge of the rooftop, peering down. The sight was overwhelming. There were zombies everywhere. The beautiful woman awoke and immediately began to voice her grievances. Is there truly no way down? Are we to remain here indefinitely? Su Hao gestured towards the chaos below. How do you propose we descend? There are tens of thousands of students at Suqing University. Since the cataclysm struck at noon yesterday, the zombies down there likely outnumber us significantly. He was merely a freshman at Suqing University. The woman was also a student, though her year remained unknown. As did her name. Clad in designer attire, she exuded an innate air of arrogance. Her meticulously crafted makeup elevated her appearance from a modest 70 to around 80 points. The exquisite cut of her designer skirt contrasted sharply with the fact that one of her shoes had been lost, leaving her barefoot. Dressed in such a manner during her student years, she was likely preparing for high society. Aware of the multitude of zombies surrounding them, she chose to complain, criticize, and deflect responsibility. Noticing the steel pipe in Su Hao's grasp, she pointed with a delicate hand. Do you not possess a weapon? Su Hao chuckled at her remark. The vicinity of the cafeteria was swarming with no fewer than 1,000 zombies. What use would his steel pipe be? Even if 1,000 pigs lay before him to be slain, he could hardly fathom how long that would take. To be candid, as a potential combatant, a strategic player in this dire game, he felt a twinge of desire to fight the zombies. However, he was also rational and acutely aware of the overwhelming odds against them. The undead would not engage in a fair one-on-one battle. He chose not to elaborate further. Having fled to the rooftop the previous noon, the two had endured a day and night of hunger, their patience wearing thin. Thirst threatened to overwhelm them, as they had gone without water for far too long. Su Hao retrieved his phone, only to discover that the network was down, and even satellite positioning had failed. It seemed all electronic communication had ceased. He glanced at the last messages in their group chat. Jiangxing University Class of 2024 Group 1, Xinmeng from the Department of Chinese Language. Help. What on earth is happening? I'm trapped in my dormitory, and it's swarming with zombies outside. Kong Linlin from the music department. This must be the apocalypse. There are hordes of zombies below. Far too many. Suqing, the medical assistant of the medical department, advised, classmates, prioritize self-rescue and ensure your own safety first. Do not act impulsively. In the vast group chat of 2,000 people, only a handful spoke a few words before the network was severed, and mobile phones were reduced to mere clocks and flashlights, serving no other purpose. Meanwhile, on the other side, a woman noticed Su Hao engrossed in his phone, while hers had been lost the previous day, inciting her fury. She approached him, preparing to slap the phone away. At a time like this, could you be of any use? She exclaimed. A sharp slap was anticipated by Su Hao, who swiftly caught her hand. Are you afflicted with some madness? Yu Haventy even finished speaking, holding her wrist. He subtly turned his gaze to the outer side of her arm beneath the cool short sleeves. There were 3 faintly bleeding marks, already turning purple. The veins around them appeared tainted, spreading ominously. Ordinarily, such wounds would have scabbed by now, yet hers were expanding alarmingly. Startled by his observation, the woman withdrew her arm anxiously. Those are just scratches from yesterday when I was escaping. Su Hao's gaze suggested a silent accusation of concealment. He knew well what scratches looked like from his experience running and playing basketball. The woman's wounds were eerily identical to the claw marks he had once suffered at the hands of a sinister figure. 3 neat, parallel wounds without a doubt. In Su Hao's eyes, her status shifted from a potential socialite to a prospective zombie. Glancing at the duct tape he had casually grabbed along with the steel pipe, he prepared to stand, holding the pipe in one hand and the tape in the other. The woman immediately retreated, extending her hand to stop him while pleading, No. No. What do you intend to do? Su Hao rose without pursuing her, his voice calm and resolute. The rooftop is no larger than this. Where could you possibly run? I'm going to bind you. If you don't turn, I'll find some food and drink, and there will be a share for you. If you refuse, don't blame me for smashing your head now. Clutching the steel pipe, he dropped the duct tape at her feet. The woman stared at him in stunned silence. Su Hao nodded firmly, flexing his arm muscles slightly around the pipe, the unspoken message clear. Without the tape, she might already have been cast aside. Upon hearing this, her body sagged, and after a moment of stunned silence, tears streamed down her face as she began to bind herself. The sounds of the tape ripping echoed softly. First the feet, okay. I mean what I say. No matter how you scolded me earlier, I don't mind. Thank you. After securing her feet and knees, Su Hao assisted in binding her hands and helped her lean against the wall. The woman continued to weep. Her once delicate and refined countenance now utterly disheveled. Su Hao, clutching a steel pipe, settled down beside her. The woman raised her head, finally exhibiting a semblance of normalcy. After all, the apocalypse had frayed the nerves of even the most stable individuals, altering their demeanor. I am Panya, a junior, she introduced herself. Su Hao, a freshman. He replied, acknowledging her as his senior. A few words were exchanged before Panya began to weep silently once more. Time passed, each minute stretching indefinitely. The zombies below continued their relentless howling. On the rooftop, Panya sobbed while her body began to convulse unnaturally, her complexion turning ashen, eyes reddening with blood vessels. Witnessing this, Su Hao shook his head in resignation. Panya lifted her gaze, forcing a grotesque smile. Junior, I'm sorry. It's all right, Su Hao replied, shaking his head. Rest easy. By noon, Panya had transformed into a zombie, thrashing helplessly on the ground, her movements restricted by duct tape, leaving her to writhe and scrape against the earth, bloodied and battered. Unable to bear the sight, Su Hao picked up the steel pipe with a heavy sigh. Rest in peace, senior. With that, he stepped aside, gripping the pipe tightly, aimed at her head, and struck down with force. Thud. Once. Thud. Twice. After several blows, she ceased her struggles, succumbing to his merciful act. The midday sun blazed fiercely. Standing on the rooftop, Su Hao gazed down at the zombies below. Clenching the steel pipe tightly, he lightly licked his lips with a newfound determination. At that moment, a melodious voice resonated in his mind. Mission triggered, the first blood of the apocalypse. Congratulations on activating God-level selection system. By completing the mission, you can infinitely obtain God-level selection rewards. Congratulations, host. On receiving the novice reward and the first blood mission, please choose any two from the following 3 rewards. Novice rewards. Reward 1, 1 ton of gold. Reward 2, a beauty with a minimum score of 90 in looks. Reward 3, cold weapon proficiency level, level 10. First blood rewards. Reward 1, cold weapon level 10. Great broadsword, 10-person slaughter mission. Novice rewards. Reward 1, 1 ton of gold. Reward 2, a beauty with a minimum score of 90 in looks. Reward 3, cold weapon proficiency level, level 10. First blood rewards. Reward 1, 10 tons of beef. Reward 2, an alloy great broadsword. Reward 3, attribute points x5. With 6 rewards to choose from, he could select any 2. Su Hao initially felt exhilarated, but soon calmed himself, weighing his options carefully. He scanned through the 6 rewards. The first to be dismissed was the woman. In chaotic times, strength was paramount. The essence of humanity lies in the struggle for survival. And violence is the core algorithm of our very being. Undoubtedly, absolute power surpasses absolute wealth and authority. Next, he considered the gold and beef. 1 ton of gold amounts to 1 million grams, equating to 1 billion when multiplied by 100,000. In prosperous times, he would undoubtedly choose this option. However, in these apocalyptic days, while gold may emerge as a universal currency, it fails to endow him with true power. As for the beef, where would it go? The system rewards are temporarily stored in the system space, but cannot be retrieved once extracted. It's acceptable, yet I shall decline. Su Hao shook his head. I shall refrain from consuming beef for now, even with the temporary system space. It pales in comparison to the 3 rewards that remain after the process of elimination. What level does a grade 10 cold weapon represent? Su Hao clicked to view the details of the rewards. Human peak cold weapon mastery is at level 10, akin to Xiangyu. The valiant prowess of the feathered warrior is unparalleled through the ages. Yet, mastery must be coupled with physical condition. And Su Hao is acutely aware that his current physique falls short of Xiangyu's. I shall tentatively select this. As for the attribute points, let us delve deeper into the reward details. Subsequently, his attribute panel unfolded before him. Name, Su Hao. Age, 19. Attributes, Strength 73, Constitution 71, Spirit 70. Remaining unlocked. The average level for adult humans is 60, with a maximum of 100. Rewards, yet to be chosen. Warehouse, none. In this light, 5 attribute points seem somewhat lacking. Given the pressing circumstances, the enhancement is neither significant nor substantial. Su Hao's gaze then shifted to the broadsaber. Alloy Great Broadsaber. Total length 110 centimeters. Blade length 75 centimeters. Thickness 8 millimeters. Usable with 1 or 2 hands. The blade is straight and steadfast, embodying the majesty of a sword and the dominance of a saber, crafted entirely from alloy. It truly cuts through iron as if it were mud. The designation Great Broadsaber arises from its slightly greater length and thickness compared to a standard broadsaber, making it more suitable for slashing and hacking. Furthermore, the system's reward is made of alloy, its exterior a dark blue hue, emanating an aura sufficient to instill dread. Upon reaching this point, Su Hao glanced again at the steel pipe in his hand, coupling this with the prior tentative selection. The synergy between the pinnacle of cold weapon mastery and the alloy weapon will undoubtedly surpass that of the attribute points and steel pipe by a considerable margin. There is no need for further contemplation. I choose the grade 10 cold weapon mastery, along with the alloy great broadsaber. Rewards have been granted in the next moment. A vast array of martial techniques, knowledge, and experience surged into Su Hao's mind. As he absorbed these memories, he cast aside the steel pipe with a clang and, with a mere flick of his hand, conjured a formidable broadsword exceeding a meter in length. After a brief moment, once all memories had been assimilated, Su Hao wielded the sword, casually flicking his wrist to create a flourish. The ethereal blue blade left a fleeting impression in the air. He then executed a series of strikes, slashes, thrusts, horizontal cuts, and upward sweeps, aside from the midday sun causing beads of sweat to form on his brow. The remainder of his sensations was sheer exhilaration. What a delight! Ahem. After more than a day without water, a dry cough escaped Su Hao's throat. He licked his parched lips and gazed at the iron door leading to the rooftop. At that moment, several zombies aimlessly wandered near the lower staircase. Grasping the broadsword firmly, Su Hao advanced toward the iron door. It was time to descend. One cannot linger on the rooftop indefinitely, cut off from sustenance, and await inevitable demise. Arriving at the door, he ensured that no zombies lurked outside before cautiously opening it and peering down. 3 were present. Task triggered. Zombie decimation. Task requirements. Slay 10 zombies. Task reward. 1 opportunity for an unlimited divine selection. The second task commenced with a daunting quota of 10. Fortunately, he had previously chosen cold weapons and the broadsword. Otherwise, attempting to slay 10 zombies with merely a steel pipe would indeed be perilous. However, the 3 zombies that had wandered up were manageable. The stairs served as a natural barrier. He would only face a maximum of 2 zombies at any given time. As long as he utilized the terrain wisely and avoided being encircled, the challenge would be far from insurmountable. He reminded himself to leverage the terrain, refrain from prolonged engagements, maintain distance, and avoid being ensnared by the stairs. Most critically, he must not allow the zombies to touch him. A single misstep could lead to catastrophic failure. After silently reciting these precautions, Su Hao descended the stairs, arriving at the corner platform of the staircase, poised for an ambush. Ahem! A gentle cough escaped his lips, prompting the 3 zombies below to turn their heads in unison toward the corner where Su Hao stood. Among them were 2 former classmates and 1 cafeteria worker. Their faces and necks grotesquely gnawed, flesh decayed, and even eyes dangling from their sockets. Blood stained their bodies, rendering their clothing a dark crimson. One of them was even missing a hand, with only 2 bony protrusions remaining. The nearest zombie immediately charged at him, only to trip over the first step with a thud, causing an eye to dislodge from its socket and bounce on the floor. The remaining 2 zombies maneuvered around, ascending the stairs to reach for Su Hao. Observing the approaching zombies, Su Hao surprisingly felt no anxiety. Rather, a sense of eager anticipation welled within him. Could it be that he was a warrior at heart? Although he may be a war criminal in strategy games, mercilessly executing foes with a sense of excitement, the stark reality is undeniably different. A few seconds passed, and as the distance was deemed sufficient, Su Hao adjusted his stance, gripping the blade tightly, channeling a subtle surge of energy. With a swift, horizontal motion, he struck with precision, the nearest zombie's head severed with a satisfying squelch. Yet, the encounter was not over. A second zombie approached. Harnessing the remaining force, Su Hao deftly twisted his wrist, delivering another decisive blow. Another head flew off, leaving the 2 headless corpses to collapse in confusion, motionless. The last zombie crawled helplessly on the ground. Confirming the demise of the first 2, Su Hao stepped over them, raising his blade to plunge into the last one's skull. With a final thrust, the task was complete, 3 zombies dispatched. Feeling invigorated, he noted he still needed to eliminate 7 more. Shaking the blood from his weapon, Su Hao paused to catch his breath, feeling not just well, but remarkably so. Observing the scattered bodies and pooling blood, he felt little discomfort, only a gnawing hunger and thirst, mingled with a twinge of nausea from the scent. His stomach growled audibly, prompting him to rub it gently. I need to find something to eat. I'm far too hungry. Without sustenance soon, he would weaken by nightfall, which could lead to dire consequences. The cafeteria spanned 3 floors, with the 3rd primarily serving as a multifunctional space for staff. His next objective was clear. A thorough sweep was necessary. Chapter 003, Attributes of 10, Assembling the Goddess Team. The cafeteria featured 3 levels. Besides the multi-purpose third floor, the first and second floors were dedicated to dining. Thus, to find food, the second floor seemed the logical choice. Yet, after a moment's contemplation, Su Hao decisively dismissed that notion. He could not head directly to the second floor. First, he must eradicate the zombies from the third. Even if the food supply on the third was limited, it was crucial to clear it completely. In confined spaces, it was advisable to eliminate all threats rather than risk a confrontation that could attract more zombies from the third floor while he engaged the ones on the second. In games, one could swing a sword endlessly without fatigue, but in reality, even the strongest individual would tire quickly when besieged by zombies. This was a truth understood by anyone who had ever engaged in physical labor. Resolving to first clear the third floor of zombies, Su Hao brandished his formidable blade and began his approach towards the living room. As he turned the corner into the room, he scanned the area, counting fewer than 20 zombies, a fortunate turn of events, as the second floor surely harbored no less than 100. With determination, he advanced, weapon in hand. He located the nearest zombie, and with a swift motion of his blade, dispatched it with a satisfying thud. The creature collapsed, drawing the attention of others who began to advance towards Su Hao. This horde primarily consisted of former staff members, yet their fates were eerily similar. Some bore the gruesome signs of having their faces and necks gnawed upon, while others displayed the marks of natural mutations, their hands mangled from bites. All indicative of violent encounters. The surrounding furniture lay scattered, a testament to the chaos that had unfolded within the room, which was in near total disarray. As the small group of undead drew closer, Su Hao licked his parched lips and boldly approached them. His actions were not reckless. Rather, he understood that allowing the zombies to encircle him would diminish his maneuverability and intensify the density of the throng, complicating the fight. Instead, he opted to confront the solitary zombies, swinging his blade with precision to sever their heads, then repositioning himself to avoid any potential hazards on the floor. He sought out any remaining stragglers, striving to create advantageous conditions for one-on-one or two-on-one encounters against these slow-moving foes. With deft strikes, he executed a series of beheadings, each one marked by the pinnacle of human skill with cold steel. Su Hao wielded a hefty sword exceeding a meter in length, ensuring that every swing remained within a 30-centimeter range of the blade's tip, resulting in flawlessly executed decapitations. This method, while perhaps not the most glamorous, was undoubtedly efficient and required minimal exertion. Fortuitously, the alloy blade was exceptionally sharp, slicing through cervical vertebrae with the ease of cutting through a radish. After a brief struggle, he had dispatched all 20 zombies. Leaning against a window, he took a moment to catch his breath and recuperate. The limitations of an ordinary human body became apparent. With all the zombies on the third floor eradicated, Su Hao utilized this pause to check the system notifications. Congratulations on completing the task. Zombie decapitation, 10 kills. Infinite God-level choices unlocked. Please select one of the following 3 options. Reward 1, 100 tons of bottled water. Reward 2, 25 forged sabers. Reward 3, 10 attribute points. While he felt a strong thirst, the early days of the apocalypse had made water sources readily accessible and uncontaminated, rendering the bottled water an unnecessary choice. He had previously passed on beef, so opting for water seemed illogical. The second option, a set of 25 forged sabers, was equally impractical. While effective for cutting, he had no need for that many, especially since he currently possessed a superior alloy sword. Thus, Su Hao's gaze turned towards the third option. 10 attribute points were a significant boon. Previously, 5 points felt somewhat meager and yielded limited effects, but 10 points would undoubtedly have a more pronounced impact. Su Hao glanced at his attribute panel. Strength 73, Constitution 71, Spirit 70. These attributes represent detailed aspects of human capabilities. Let's take a closer look. Strength signifies muscular power, bone density, neural recruitment capacity, tendon strength, skin resilience, and other physical attributes. Constitution denotes stamina recovery, maximum stamina, visceral strength, neural response, wound healing, and other physiological aspects. Spirit reflects willpower, energy limits, energy recovery, sleep requirements, rational thinking, intelligence quotient, and information processing capabilities. Thus, these 3 dimensions of human attributes can be succinctly termed. Strength, constitution, and spirit comprehensively encompass the human condition and are sensibly categorized. The average adult measures at 60, while the upper limits of humanity reach 100. As Su Hao previously engaged in athletic pursuits, he possesses slightly enhanced capabilities compared to the average individual, though he has yet to attain the level of a professional athlete, who typically ranges between 75 and 85, with world records hovering around 90. After confirming the details, Su Hao resolutely made his choice. prioritizing strength above all. He opted for Reward 3. Reward has been granted, attribute points allocated. Strength increased by 7 points. Constitution increased by 3 points. Point allocation successful. Name, Su Hao. Age, 19. Attributes, Strength 80, Constitution 74, Spirit 70, remaining points locked. The average adult human level is 60. With an extreme limit of 100. Reward, Level 10 Cold Weapon, Inventory, Alloy Great Broadsword. In that instant of successful allocation, Su Hao felt an immediate surge of warmth coursing through his body, followed by a tingling sensation akin to a limb falling asleep. Simultaneously, he distinctly sensed an enhancement in his abilities. This sensation was swift yet fleeting. Moments later, as he clenched his fist anew, the previous fatigue had vanished entirely. His fingertips brimmed with vigor. What a delightful feeling. Su Hao chuckled softly, then rose to seek sustenance. Bang! However, just before departing, a sudden crashing noise erupted from outside. Su Hao turned to see a chair hurled from the dormitory building, and upon hearing the commotion, a horde of zombies swiftly encircled the chair. Glancing upward, he spotted a female student from the girls' dormitory next door waving frantically at him. Upon realizing that Su Hao had noticed her, she continued to wave but refrained from calling out, fearing it would attract the undead. Her lips formed the words, "Save me." Su Hao silently shook his head. He had no time to contemplate such matters. With 4 individuals per dormitory and 6 stories in the building, there were at least 1,000 zombies in total. Not accounting for those absent from the dorms. To save one, would he need to slay thousands? What was he thinking? Why must there be only this one woman? Su Hao took a moment to appraise the other's appearance, rating it at an 80 out of 100, slightly better than the senior he had dispatched earlier on the rooftop. Even if he wished to assemble a team of goddesses, there was no rush. First, he needed to find something to eat. Just then, a notification echoed in his mind. Host's intent detected. Mission triggered. Assemble a team of goddesses. In response to reader feedback, I will not indiscriminately recruit women. Nor have I done so. Intellect is preferred over mere beauty. Thank you. Mission description. In a post-apocalyptic world, restoring various living conditions relies heavily on teams and skilled personnel. Compared to men, women are more prone to admire the strong and are easier to subdue, less likely to betray. Please identify the first woman you encounter in this new world. Approach her to obtain detailed information. A composite score of 85 or above will be recognized by the system. Granting rewards. Temporary mission reward. 1. Unlimited divine selection. Permanent mission reward. For each goddess recruited with a score above the overall average of 85. Receive 1 unlimited divine selection. Chapter 004. The 100 People Slaying Mission. Another senior in distress? Su Hao was somewhat taken aback by the task's initiation. Could it truly be triggered in such a manner? It seemed he would need to engage his intellect more in the future. The more missions he accepted, the more he could achieve, leading to greater rewards. After all, there were no penalties for failure, merely the status of uncompleted tasks. Thus, the more missions he could trigger, the better. Reflecting on the previous task's description, it was undeniably accurate. In the aftermath of catastrophe, women were indeed more malleable than men. Those who had been betrayed by women were either swayed by sufficient incentives or were simply too weak, allowing for betrayal without fear of retribution. If one's strength was formidable enough, it was far easier for women to submit to powerful figures than to men. This was a matter of genetic predisposition. To put it plainly, in peaceful times, strength equates to capital and power. In times of war, strength represents military force and authority. In apocalyptic times, strength is defined solely by absolute power. For the sake of rewards, it would be wise to seek opportunities to explore this. However, he would not act recklessly. A well-thought-out plan was essential. His immediate objective was to continue purging zombies from the cafeteria and to procure sustenance. Armed with a large broadsword, Su Hao began his search through the various rooms on the 3rd floor of the cafeteria. He discovered bottled water, chips, wong snow cakes, bread, biscuits, and cola. Quite a decent haul. After spending a couple of hours scouring the 3rd floor, he found an abundance of food. The Chinese have a tendency to stockpile provisions, setting aside items that may not be favored during normal times, yet are invaluable in emergencies. He even stumbled upon a wardrobe filled with snacks, including the cola and chips he had found. With a satisfying crunch, he began to eat leisurely, having gone an entire day without food or drink. Although it is said that one can survive 3 days without water, the reality is that one may begin to feel weakness after merely a day without food or drink. The decline of the human body is akin to a progress bar, a gradual descent rather than a mere phase. Su Hao, while partaking of his meal, glanced at his phone to check the time. It was already 3 in the afternoon. With the remaining hours of the day, he could at most clear the 2nd floor. By dusk, he needed to ensure everything was in order and return to a safe haven for rest. He must not linger in combat come nightfall. Mission triggered. Zombie slaughter. 24100. Mission description. Upon accumulating the elimination of 100 zombies, your proficiency in handling zombies will reach an advanced level. Mission reward. 1 opportunity for an unlimited divine selection. Another mission had been activated. Su Hao relished the abundance of tasks. Furthermore, there was favorable news. The tally of slain zombies was cumulative. The mission required 100, and he had already dispatched 24. Continuing to savor his food and sip on soda, he planned to clear the zombies on the second floor after a brief respite. After a while, having finished his meal and feeling approximately 70% full, Su Hao took a moment to rest before rising once more, armed with his blade. It was time to commence the slaughter. The hour was nearly 4, and the sun began its descent. He needed to eliminate as many zombies as possible before darkness fell, with hopes of venturing into the cafeteria the following day. With his large sword in hand, Su Hao steeled his resolve and descended to the second floor. Upon arrival, he was met with a daunting sight: numerous zombies, most of whom were students. The cafeteria was in disarray, with tables, chairs, and unfinished food scattered about. Machines like refrigerators tipped askew. A quick glance revealed nearly 200 zombies present. The pressure was immense. Slaying 200 creatures was no trivial task. Most of these students had undergone natural mutations, the most apparent sign being the absence of significant wounds. Those transformed into zombies typically bore devastating bites to the face and neck. The ones who had resisted had their hands mangled, some fingers were bitten off, while others had lost entire hands, and some were even missing half their bodies. No matter, he thought, patience was key. Following the principles of engagement, Su Hao licked his lips, gripped the hilt of his sword, and prepared himself for the onslaught. He advanced toward the nearest zombie. Spotting 2 huddled together, he swung his blade. With a satisfying thud, both heads flew from their bodies, crashing to the ground. Instantly, the nearby zombies sensed the disturbance and lunged towards Su Hao. Embracing the confrontation, he maneuvered to create a manageable space of 1 against 3, relentlessly wielding his sword with precision. Strike after strike, he engaged in a brutal dance of slaughter. The sound of blades meeting flesh echoed through the air, a relentless symphony of violence. The efficacy of slashing is undoubtedly the most superior, there is no doubt about it. In this dire situation, appearances are futile. What truly matters is efficiency and minimal exertion. The number of zombies is rapidly diminishing, yet nearly 200 remains excessively daunting, equivalent to the size of 45 classes. Despite Su Hao's valiant efforts, he is gradually forced back to the staircase. In this brief interval, he has already dispatched 40 zombies. The corpses littering the ground have caused several zombies to trip, and some severed heads have been inadvertently kicked about like a ball, rolling all over the place, with one even tumbling down the stairs. This commotion has stirred the zombies on the first floor into a frenzy. Meanwhile, in the girls' dormitory adjacent to the cafeteria, Huang Shanshan, filled with anger, despair, and disappointment upon witnessing Su Hao shake his head and depart, is on the verge of shouting in frustration. However, upon seeing the horde of zombies below, she quickly suppresses her voice. The dormitory door behind her is barricaded with various heavy objects such as chairs, tables, and cabinets. While zombies wander outside, during yesterday's outbreak, her roommates happened to be absent, leaving her alone in the dormitory, which ultimately spared her from the calamity. Although there is some food in the dormitory, it will last her no more than 3 days. The harrowing screams from the building last night attest to the fact that some individuals were overpowered by zombies when their doors were breached. All night, she was engulfed in terror. Calling for help was futile. There was no signal to reach anyone. Anxiously, Huang Shanshan pulls out her phone and futilely refreshes it, even though she knows there is no connection. Damn it. Why hasn't anyone come to rescue me? This is so cruel. Just moments ago, while observing the surroundings from the balcony, she accidentally spotted someone battling zombies on the second floor of the opposite cafeteria. Since then, she has been watching intently. However, being on the 5th floor, with the cafeteria on the 3rd, her view is limited. She can only see Su Hao, as he maneuvers near the window, dispatching 45 zombies, all with a single strike to the neck. How formidable! Initially astonished, Huang Shanshan then shifts her gaze to the cafeteria and notices the corpse of a senior on the balcony. Since the senior had been bound with tape before her transformation, the outward changes are not overly significant. Consequently, her mind races with horror. Did this person bind and kill the senior? After a brief contemplation, she acknowledges that although it is a heinous act, he is undeniably powerful. Moreover, he is her only glimmer of hope, prompting her to grab a chair and toss it to create noise, hoping to catch Su Hao's attention. She waves her hand, but he shakes his head in refusal. Enraged, her face flushes crimson. A person of such strength and skill, yet he refuses to rescue me. He must be the worst kind of villain. That knife would be better off in my hands. Perhaps I could fight my way out if only I had a weapon. If I encounter him again, I must find a way to seize that knife from him. Chapter 005. Gene Optimization Liquid. The Surge of Physical Qualities. Second floor of the cafeteria. Amidst the relentless onslaught of the horde of zombies, Su Hao found himself forced back to the staircase. It was not a matter of inability to fight, but rather the constraints of space and the necessity to ensure a flawless escape, for this was not a game where one could simply charge in recklessly. After allocating his attributes, Su Hao managed to dispatch over 40 zombies in quick succession before he began to feel the strain. The headless corpses littering the ground had created a veritable impediment. Upon hearing the chilling roars of the zombies from the first floor, Su Hao promptly resolved to return to the corner of the staircase. This juncture offered a natural barrier, with its expansive platform providing ample space. Moreover, the number of zombies able to ascend was limited, meaning he had to contend with fewer adversaries simultaneously. He swiftly turned back to the staircase corner, pursued by the ravenous horde. Fortunately, the third floor had been thoroughly cleared, leaving no zombies to threaten his rear. Otherwise, being surrounded would have spelled his doom. As the zombies began to ascend the stairs, Su Hao, having enhanced his physical constitution, found his stamina recovering at an admirable pace. A brief respite revitalized him considerably. He then resumed his assault with fervor, shouting, "Die!" as he severed heads with his blade. The decapitated heads flew into the air, and more zombies followed suit, only to meet the same fate. "Die, all of you!" Minutes passed, and Su Hao, breathless and drenched in sweat, felt the exertion take its toll. Each swing of his blade sent droplets of perspiration cascading from his hair, temples, chin, and arms. Fatigue gripped him, yet an insatiable bloodlust surged within, spurring him on to greater heights of frenzy. The sight of heads soaring through the air became a beautiful tableau, and the fallen zombies resembled the joyous harvest of wheat. As he continued his relentless assault, Su Hao eventually came to a halt, not because the horde was vanquished, but because the staircase was now completely obstructed by the amassed bodies. In just a few minutes, he had dispatched dozens more zombies, though he had not kept a precise tally. Certainly, the number exceeded several tens. He would check the records later. The corpses formed an impenetrable blockade at the staircase, and the zombies attempting to advance were forced to navigate through the piled bodies. However, sensing their own kind, many zombies lost interest and were reduced to aimlessly crawling and staggering in circles. Seizing the opportunity, Su Hao took deep breaths to recover. He lifted his great sword and inspected it. The ethereal blue blade bore only a few specks of blood, adorning its surface like both a stain and a badge of honor, an exquisite sight for a warrior, more intoxicating than the allure of any woman. Curious about his progress, he accessed the system and discovered, "Congratulations on completing the task, Zombie 100 Slaughter." Upon reviewing the rewards, the first option, consisting solely of culinary delights, was dismissed by Su Hao. He shifted his focus to the second and third rewards. The third reward, offering a generous 50 cubic meters of system space, was particularly enticing. Akin to the size of a living room, capable of accommodating a multitude of items, he could easily store a vehicle or stockpile substantial quantities of gasoline, food, and medical supplies. This practicality stirred a sense of eagerness within him. With a sigh of regret, Su Hao reminded himself that in this apocalyptic world, prioritizing strength enhancement was paramount. The system space could be expanded with sufficient task completion, but the availability of the gene optimization liquid was uncertain. Turning his attention to the gene optimization liquid, he read, "Beginner Warrior Gene Optimization Liquid enhances the physical attributes of the user, increasing each dimensional aspect by 10 points, thereby augmenting overall athletic ability, neural response speed, and significantly boosting resistance to viral infections. The common zombie virus will only induce weakness in a beginner warrior for 15 to 30 days. This was undeniably advantageous. An increase of 30 attribute points, coupled with enhanced viral resistance, was invaluable. The most crucial aspect was the enhanced resistance to viruses. While Su Hao was confident in his combat abilities, his vulnerability to viral infections was a pressing concern. Even the most robust individual could fall victim to a single bite or scratch, should he succumb to the zombie transformation. The implications could be dire. At the very least, he could wreak havoc among the living. As for the induced weakness, it was a manageable consequence. Provided he had access to food, it could simply be viewed as a temporary respite. Thus, Su Hao resolutely decided to select the second reward. Selection successful. Would you like to use it immediately? It is recommended to rest for one night to allow for the genetic evolution of your body, the system notified. Upon hearing this, Su Hao glanced at the barricade of corpses that obstructed the staircase. There was no point in engaging in combat. It was best to call it a day. He resolved to utilize the optimization liquid later, ensuring there were no unexpected surprises. To fortify his defenses, he moved heavy objects to create an additional barrier of furniture behind the corpse wall, preventing any zombies from ascending. Returning to the third floor, He surveyed the zombies behind the makeshift wall and issued a fierce proclamation. Tomorrow, I shall eliminate all of you. The only response from the horde was a chorus of undead growls. With that, he ascended the stairs. Finding a room with a window, Su Hao gathered some food and a soft mat, locked the door, and secured it with additional objects. Once everything was in place, he settled on the mat to finish his meal, keeping his large knife close at hand, and finally, in his heart, he silently intoned, "Use the potion." Potion has been used. As he slumbered, the primary soldier gene optimization serum commenced its function. The body, which had previously ceased its development, began to exhibit remarkable growth once more. Muscle mass increased, the nervous system strengthened, bone density augmented, the strength of tendons and ligaments improved, and the internal organs, including the liver, kidneys, and lymphatic immune system, were all enhanced. Even the neurons and nerves within the brain proliferated and intensified. This was a true manifestation of comprehensive evolution. At 10 p.m., Su Hao stood at 178 centimeters and weighed 160 gene. By 2 a.m., his height had risen to 181 centimeters and his weight to 170 gene. At 6 a.m., he measured 185 centimeters and weighed 180 gene, surpassing the standard weight by 20 to 30 gene. An astonishing overnight growth of 7 centimeters in height and an increase of 20 gene in weight, were it not for the gene optimization serum providing sustenance. Merely gaining this weight would have required an extraordinary amount of nutritional energy. For an ordinary individual, such rapid growth could lead to cellular depletion or even a fatal hypoglycemic shock, as regular food would be utterly inadequate to furnish such energy in a short span. Even the most relentless consumption, including direct oil intake, would not suffice. Only a diet rich in comprehensive high-energy nutrition could facilitate such transformation. Chapter 006, The Thousand-Man Slaughter Mission. The cries outside the building as the morning sun streamed through the window, illuminating the room inch by inch. The sunlight gradually reached Su Hao's eyes. With a soft murmur, he awakened, opening his eyes and sitting upright. He glanced down at the prominent bulge beneath his waist, feeling a surge of thirst. He reached for an unopened can of cola beside him, popping it open with a satisfying hiss and gulping it down fervently. After finishing the bottle in one breath, Su Hao rose to inspect his physique. Have I grown taller? He looked down at his noticeably shortened clothing and confirmed that he had indeed grown taller and significantly more robust. His shorts, which once reached his knees, now sat well above them. His t-shirt clung tightly to his toned muscles, the fabric stretched to its limits. Rolling up his sleeves and lifting his shirt slightly, he observed his muscles. They were well-defined, perfectly proportioned, and exuded an aesthetic of strength akin to a masterfully sculpted work of art. He had grown taller, stronger, and more muscular. With a casual tug at his belt, he glanced down, only to exclaim in astonishment, "What a profit!" He had anticipated that this aspect could also amplify due to the gene serum. Yet, it couldn't grow any larger without becoming burdensome. With a swift motion, he released his belt. Stretching languidly, Su Hao seized his large broadsword and began to practice within the confines of his room. With movements that flowed seamlessly, he executed a series of strikes, slashes, thrusts, cuts, and chops, with an intensity that surpassed his previous performance, each motion imbued with sharpness and an unstoppable force, as though he could slice through anything. Concluding his routine with a flourish, he sheathed his sword, taking a moment to assess his newfound control and familiarize himself with the flow of power. It has become almost insubstantial. Observe the attributes. Name, Su Hao. Age, 19. Attributes, Strength 90, Constitution 84, Spirit 80, remaining unlocked. The average level for adult humans is 60, with a maximum of 100. Reward, Cold Weapon Level 10, Warehouse, Alloy Great Broadsword. This is quite an impressive level. With a strength of 90, he has approached the threshold of human capability, comparable to elite athletes in weightlifting, strongman competitions, arm wrestling, and throwing events. He surpasses the strength of 999 individuals from the pre-apocalyptic world. His constitution is equally commendable, at least on par with top-tier marathon runners and triathletes. It is satisfactory at last. Su Hao rose and approached the window to observe the scene below. The horde of zombies remained as numerous as ever, showing little change. The population density in the school was exceedingly high. Once surrounded, it was exceedingly difficult for ordinary people to break free. In other buildings, there were ample staircases and even emergency exits that were typically unoccupied. However, the dormitory building generally had only 2 entrances, once blocked. The only escape was to descend from the balcony. Otherwise, the only option to exit through the main door was to fight one's way out. Yesterday, he managed to slay over 100 zombies throughout the day. Yet, in a single dormitory, there were at least several hundred, if not over 1,000. It was truly terrifying. Nevertheless, Given his current dexterity and strength, he felt confident he could dispatch hundreds of zombies without breaking a sweat. As for today, without further ado, breaking out of the cafeteria and locating that woman from yesterday should pose no problem. How to get there? He would figure that out as he went along. Triggered task: 1,000 zombie slaughter. 1, 361,000. Task description: kill. Task reward: 1 infinite god level selection. Upon seeing this task, Su Hao felt a mix of excitement and disdain. Whether it was 1, 10, or 100, now it required 1,000 for the same reward. The achievement tasks were becoming increasingly arduous. Just as he finished his thought, another task was triggered. Triggered task: break out of the cafeteria. Task description: how can a true man remain languishing beneath the cafeteria? Please escape within a day and proceed to any location. Task reward: 1 infinite god level selection. That is quite favorable, Su Hao added. With these 2 tasks, alongside the goddess team task from yesterday, he now possessed 3 tasks, which was excellent. Having multiple tasks was never a burden. Indeed, the more, the merrier. Without further ado, he commenced his assault. Without hesitation, Su Hao began to clear away the objects that had been used to barricade the door yesterday. Primarily, it was a large wooden table, propped up with benches. When he moved the table yesterday, it had been somewhat taxing. Today, however, it felt effortless, as if it were weightless. The 10-point increase in strength brought a sensation far beyond mere numbers. Sometimes, a slight difference in strength could yield drastically different results. Remove the items blocking the entrance. Open the door to observe the 3rd floor. Excellent. No zombies have approached. Arriving at the staircase, the furniture and appliances used to obstruct the stairs yesterday remain in place, along with the bodies. However, the blockage is solely along the main stairway. Aside from the handrails, there is no other way to barricade the area. After a night of waiting, the zombies from yesterday have dispersed. At this moment, only a few zombies linger at the staircase. It's time to leap over and engage them. He had performed similar feats in middle school. If he found himself surrounded, he could always retreat. Very well, this is the plan. Once his strategy was devised, Su Hao brandished his knife, pushing off with one hand as he vaulted over the handrail from the 3rd floor to the 2nd. His feet landed on the 2nd floor railing, and with another leap, he touched down. The zombies, alerted by the noise, turned towards Su Hao. Without hesitation, Su Hao charged forth, knife in hand. He met the zombies head-on, swinging his blade with ferocity. With a powerful downward slash, he cleaved the first zombie from its left neck to its right arm, severing both head and limb in one decisive blow. After dispatching the first, he savored the thrill of the hunt, maintaining a calculated approach as he continued to strike. His movements were stable and agile, bolstered by a total attribute increase of 30 points. Su Hao felt significantly stronger today than yesterday. Indeed, he felt a great leap in his prowess. 3 zombies approached from the front, while 4 drew near from the left. Su Hao swiftly eliminated the 3 in front, then turned to the left to dispatch 2 more, deftly maneuvering to avoid being flanked by the right. Finally, he took down the remaining 2. If this had been yesterday, he would have needed to maneuver and evade multiple times, managing at most to kill 12 zombies in a short span. Now, depending on the circumstances, he could easily slay 5 in a single stroke if the opportunity arose. Thus, an hour passed. On the 2nd floor of the cafeteria, only one figure stood: Su Hao. The rest of the zombies lay on the floor, their heads and bodies perfectly aligned, neither more nor less than necessary. Panting slightly as he held the bloodied broadsword, Su Hao felt exhilaration coursing through him. What a thrill it was to vanquish so many zombies. The rush of dopamine surged within him, coupled with the euphoria of physical exertion. In a word, it was more satisfying than anything else. Glancing at his kill count, he noted, quest, zombie slaughter of 1,000. 256,1000. What a relief. Su Hao exhaled deeply, feeling a sense of clarity wash over him. Am I truly becoming a battle maniac? He flicked the blade to shake off the blood, just as he contemplated seeking sustenance and inspecting the 2nd floor of the cafeteria. A chilling scream of despair echoed from outside. Damn it. Chapter 007. Escape from the cafeteria. The arrogant senior, upon hearing the anguished shouts, filled with tears. Su Hao approached the window, peering towards the source of the commotion. The loud outburst not only drew the attention of the horde of zombies, but also prompted several figures to appear intermittently on the balconies of the dormitory buildings. A glance revealed to Su Hao that there were indeed a number of survivors, albeit not many. The apparent abundance was misleading, as it stemmed from the silence of the past few days. He had assumed most had perished. In an ideal scenario with all 4 dorm mates present, luck would dictate a challenging 2v2 or even a daunting 1v4, necessitating a flawless survival. The remaining fortunate ones were those whose roommates were absent, allowing for a manageable 1v1, or even solitude in their dormitory, thus sidestepping such dilemmas. However, The unfortunate reality was the inability to escape. Get lost. The shout from outside rang out once more, this time laced with madness and a tone of self-destruction. Like the rest of the living, Su Hao turned his gaze towards the sound. Below a male dormitory, a male student, after much hesitation, finally leapt from the third floor, clinging to the wall. Judging by his demeanor, Su Hao surmised the grim truth. The dormitory held no food reserves. Even before the water supply ceased, there had been only a trickle. And while one could resort to toilet water in dire circumstances, a lack of food was an absolute void. 2 days into the apocalypse, and though one could survive for a while on water alone, few would willingly push themselves to such extremes. That was true despair. Thus, after enduring 2 days of hunger, the male student chose to jump from the third-floor balcony, attempting to mitigate the impact of his fall. Fortuitously, he escaped injury. But misfortune awaited him in the form of an overwhelming number of zombies. As he darted left and right, a zombie seized his shoulder, tearing away a small piece of flesh, resulting in his first agonizing scream. Having succumbed to infection, fleeing became futile. He would transform into a zombie within a day, and his cries were filled with despair. His frantic escape attracted a veritable swarm of zombies, with thousands beginning to converge on his location. Realizing that his actions had drawn the horde, the male student suddenly grasped the gravity of his situation and shouted towards the dormitory behind him, "To hell with it. I'm done for. Let the damned zombies come after me." With that declaration, he continued to yell while running, desperately seeking to lure as many zombies as possible towards the open expanse of the stadium. Su Hao silently observed the young man's retreat, exhaling a sigh of admiration. He nodded in respect. Safe travels. Regardless of the circumstances, the final act of the young man was commendable. Even if it was born from a realization of his dire predicament, the deed itself was significant. Whatever the motive, the outcome was a noble one. As anticipated, after most of the zombies had been lured away, the vicinity of the dormitory in the southern district saw a significant reduction in their numbers. What was once a throng of zombies surrounding the area had now dispersed into smaller clusters, with some having just been drawn out from the dormitories. Observing this, at least half of the remaining survivors began to attempt climbing out from the balconies, predominantly from the first and second floors. Those who were closer offered assistance to those above, helping them down so they could escape together. Witnessing this, Su Hao felt a sense of relief. Contrary to his expectations of the brutal nature of the apocalypse, the instinct of humanity at the dawn of such a calamity was to huddle together for warmth, rather than to engage in mutual slaughter without just cause, unless there was a compelling motivation at stake. Recalling his mission, Su Hao resolved to check on the girl from yesterday and see what score the system had assigned her. As for the zombies on the first floor, he noted that it sufficed to merely vacate the cafeteria without the necessity of exterminating every last one. He was not a sadist, after all, to feel compelled to annihilate them all. Currently situated on the second floor, he found it effortless to leap down, contemplating how to ascend to the fifth floor where the girl was. Observing how others descended, he devised his own method of ascent. At this moment, those emerging from other dormitories began to make their way towards the less populated buildings, the sports hall, information center, art building, classrooms, and administrative offices, all of which had fewer occupants and consequently fewer zombies. The dormitory and teaching buildings were the most crowded, making it unwise to linger. Just then, as the opportunity seemed ripe, the girl from the balcony called out softly to Su Hao. Upon seeing him for the first time, she momentarily froze. Was this the same person from yesterday? He appeared taller and more robust, exuding a newfound strength. The knife he wielded was unchanged, yet he seemed to have transformed significantly. At this point, she sensed nothing amiss. When Su Hao turned his head, she quickly urged him in a hushed tone, "Come help me. Most of the zombies have left. I'm from the student council. My boyfriend is the vice president. He can offer you extra credits, awards, scholarships, and even membership, whatever you wish." Su Hao was momentarily taken aback. "What can you give me? Who is your boyfriend?" he questioned, bewildered, wondering if he had misheard her. For an instant, he contemplated turning away, dismissing the notion. However, abandoning the mission would be a loss. Taking a deep breath, he decided to see what score the system would assign her. If she were not a goddess, he would ensure that her head and body would part ways. Meanwhile, Huang Shanshan from the fifth floor of the adjacent dormitory, noticing Su Hao's daze, quickly admonished him with a hint of irritation. "What are you staring at? Didn't you hear me?" Su Hao glanced at her, but said nothing. Gripping his knife, he leaped from the second-floor window of the cafeteria, landing on the lawn below. Without hesitation, he took a step onto the road, crossed the majority of it in 2 strides, and reached the opposite lawn in 3. In 4 steps, he arrived at the dormitory building, ascending directly to the first-floor balcony. Huang Shanshan interpreted his actions as agreement, feeling moved. She urged him repeatedly, "Hurry up." Su Hao remained silent, swiftly making his way upstairs. With one hand clutching the knife and the other grasping the wall, he skillfully maneuvered to the edge of the balcony, stepping onto the air conditioning unit. With a powerful push, he vaulted himself onto the second-floor balcony. Employing just one hand, he hoisted his entire body up, repeating the motion: jump, grasp, pull up, stabilize, and continue. After several iterations, he catapulted himself into her dormitory balcony, much to Huang Shanshan's astonishment. Upon his arrival, Huang Shanshan pointed towards the rooftop, indicating the corpse of the senior. That person was certainly killed by you. I saw it. You must have committed murder, perhaps even something worse. This could lead to imprisonment, or even worse, a death sentence. However, if you stay with me and protect me, I will keep your secret safe. I am very discreet. Surely, you wouldn't want the police to learn of this and see you locked away, or worse, face capital punishment, would you, Junior? Chapter 008, Slaying the Senior Again. Utilizing rewards twice, Su Hao initially hoped for a stroke of luck upon his arrival, yet he found himself embroiled in a troubling predicament. He had overestimated the intelligence of humanity in the apocalypse. Was it greed, forgetfulness, or perhaps a failure to perceive the harsh realities? Su Hao gazed at her, sighed, and refrained from speaking, opting first to scan her personal information. The only thing that could save her now was her rarity, the student council senior. As he activated the scanning function, Huang Shanshan's personal information materialized before his eyes. Huang Shanshan, age, 21, external comprehensive rating, 66, detailed data, external includes appearance, physical potential and strength, genetic talent, etc. Internal comprehensive rating, 57, detailed data, internal includes personality, IQ, values, humanity, morality, etc. Ability comprehensive rating, 34, detailed data, ability talent includes awakening potential, ability strength, growth and development, etc. Subjugation suggestion, low, suggestions categorized as extremely low, low, medium, high, extremely high. The above ratings average 60, with a maximum score of 100. After reviewing all the information, Su Hao was profoundly shocked. The details were astonishingly comprehensive. However, this proved beneficial, as it allowed him to eliminate 999 potential targets right from the start. Since he intended to assemble a team of elite women, he required only the creme de la creme. The system only acknowledges goddesses with an average score exceeding 85. What is this individual before me? In detailed evaluations, her appearance is rated at 76, yet her overall external score is merely 69, dragged down by other genetic and physical assessments. Currently, the recruitment suggestions are categorized into 5 levels. However, according to Su Hao, 2 additional extremes should be added, one being a mere roadside find, and the other reckless abandon. Those who exceed the highest tier will certainly strive to be recruited by any means necessary. Su Hao pondered, perhaps I am not a virtuous person, merely not overly malevolent. Cough. However, speaking of this extraordinary ability, upon receiving this information, Su Hao foresaw that in the apocalypse, humanity would awaken latent powers. This implies that the catastrophic environment is facilitating human evolution. Yet, the precise moment of awakening remains uncertain. That will be addressed when the time comes. Su Hao shook his head. It is both a blessing and a curse. If humanity is to evolve, then surely animals and plants will undergo transformations as well. The speed of such evolution is difficult to ascertain. Furthermore, the creatures of the ocean far outnumber those on land. As the oceans encompass approximately 70% of the Earth's surface and are colossal in volume, will they eventually take to the skies, and how formidable will they become? Of course, that is still a distant prospect. Returning to the present, Huang Shanshan observed Su Hao's silence, mistakenly believing he was at a loss for words. Thus, she adopted a condescending tone, asserting, before long, the government will undoubtedly deploy the military to re-establish secure zones. If you kill someone and are discovered in the secure zone, it will be disastrous. But if you stick with me, I will ensure your silence. Once you learn to recover, my previous assurances will still hold true. Just comply and hand over your knife. I can handle zombies as well. Su Hao couldn't help but chuckle. What are you laughing at? Huang Shanshan said, her expression serious. Are you unwilling? What will you do then? Su Hao examined the large broadsword in his hands closely. Do you still want the knife? Yes. Huang Shanshan affirmed with a nod. It's not so much a demand. Consider it a loan, and I'll return it to you later. Return it to me? Su Hao replied with a smile. Isn't it a 24-hour borrowing privilege? Huang Shanshan realized her intentions had been uncovered, and anger flared within her. Will you give it or not? Su Hao chose silence. Further discussion would waste precious time, as he had much to attend to. Under Huang Shanshan's watchful gaze, he sheathed the broadsword at his waist and assumed a stance as if to draw it. His shoulder muscles tensed, and as he adjusted his breath, an aura of intimidation surged forth. Instinctual fear gripped Huang Shanshan's heart. Are you really going to kill me? Have you lost your mind? I know Senior Han Jianxue, the top student of the Swordsmanship Society for 4 years. She is undoubtedly more formidable than you. I am familiar with Su Hao. Before her words could fully escape her lips, Su Hao, disregarding her unfinished sentence, swiftly drew his blade. The severed head soared through the air, eliciting disbelief from Huang Shanshan, whose eyes reflected a mixture of shock and horror at his audacity. The headless corpse crumpled to the ground with a thud. As the head ascended, Su Hao contemplated executing a series of aerial strikes, unleashing 3 consecutive slashes. In the aftermath of the gleaming blades, fragments, indescribable in their essence, descended from the balcony, eagerly pursued by the ravenous zombies below. Su Hao shook his head in resignation. I generally refrain from harming women. However, when the urge to kill arises, I tend to be indiscriminate. He sighed, not from regret, but rather from a sense of unease. Just prior to this encounter, he had witnessed an admirable spectacle, only to be swiftly confronted with a scene of despicable nature. The contrasts of humanity's potential for both greatness and depravity were astonishingly fluid. He sheathed his blade, wiping it against a bedsheet from the women's dormitory. Although the alloy blade remained untainted by blood, he felt the need to cleanse it for his own comfort. This marked his first act of slaying a living being. The earlier incident with Senior Pan on the rooftop, who had transformed into a zombie, did not count in his eyes. He felt neither guilt nor illicit pleasure, only an unsettling realization that he had encountered such a vile individual, one he would typically observe as a mere spectator. Glancing again at the system tasks, he noted, temporary task completed, assemble the goddess team. Task reward, 1 infinite god-level choice. Task completed, escape the cafeteria. Task reward, 1 infinite god-level choice. The temporary task had merely involved assessing the attributes of the woman, but the result was unsatisfactory. The permanent task required the subjugation of one, contingent upon fortune, and the likelihood of finding one with an 85-point rating seemed slim. Huang Shanshan barely scraped by with a passing grade. As for escaping the cafeteria, that was a trivial matter. He bypassed the first floor entirely and leapt directly from the second floor. The priority was to complete the task at hand. He utilized his rewards twice. Usage successful. Please select one from the following 3 rewards. Reward 1, 100 tons of bawang tea flavor. Boy is stringless zither. Reward 2, 50 cubic meters of system space. Reward 3, custom high-end 4 Seasons Outfit X1 vehicle. Please select one from the following 3 rewards. Reward 1, 100 tons of any flavor from Mishuai City. Reward 2, 1 zombie minion with absolute loyalty. Reward 3, 1 set of alloy general style full armor. Chapter 009, 50 cubic meters of space. Alloy heavy armor. The initial rewards were both beverages, 1 bawang tea and 1 from Mishuai City. To speak candidly, Su Hao felt a twinge of desire after perusing the options, particularly given the current climate. Milk tea truly stands out as a rare delicacy in these times. Akin to the ubiquitous allure of cola, both beverages are laden with sugar and energy, proving invaluable in a post-apocalyptic scenario. Regrettably, other rewards appeared more enticing. The first reward was a generous 50 cubic meters of space, comparable to a spacious bedroom, quite commendable indeed. This time, Su Hao felt a surge of temptation. The third reward seemed somewhat redundant in the present context. An extravagant custom-made item, or perhaps an entire vehicle. With a resigned smile, Su Hao mused, even if offered a train, he would decline. Without a doubt, he opted for the second reward. He bypassed the first reward altogether and turned his attention to the second. Loyal zombie minions? Peering down from the balcony, he pondered their utility. What purpose would such minions serve? Assisting with moving items? They were hardly eye-catching, and their combat prowess paled in comparison to his own, unless they possessed some extraordinary experience. These minions appeared rather unfit for duty. After all, there were still humans available for manual labor. He could simply enlist their help when the time came. Why squander a divine reward? He moved on to the third reward, the Alloy General Style Full Armor. He examined the detailed description. Alloy General Style Full Armor. A pinnacle creation from the armor enthusiasts of 2055. This full armor is crafted from alloy, adorned with antiquated embellishments, capable of withstanding full-powered 7.62 bullets. It includes a helmet, neck guard, inner lining, upper armor, shoulder guards, armors, belt, leg armor, battle skirt, gauntlets, and steel boots, weighing approximately 25 kilograms. Its performance is exceptional. Joints are agile, providing warmth in winter and coolness in summer. In ancient times, it could be deemed a divine gift. Note, when possessing system space, the system facilitates instantaneous wearing and removal of armor. Please prepare alternative garments within the space, lest one find themselves in an awkward predicament. Upon absorbing the details of this equipment, Su Hao, as a man, felt a joy surpassing that of encountering a goddess. Indeed, it was true. By 2055, Affluent individuals invested exorbitant sums and effort into crafting such armor. The system even supported instantaneous donning, allowing him to avoid the cumbersome process of fully equipping armor, which could be awkward to wear and remove alone. In the next moment, without the slightest hesitation, Su Hao chose the second reward, 50 cubic meters of system space. Along with the third reward, the alloy general-style full armor. Rewards have been distributed the moment Su Hao made his choice. A wealth of knowledge regarding the use of the system space flooded his mind, accompanied by an innate sense of control over it. Grasping the massive broadsword, he raised his hand and thrust it forward. A ripple surged through the space, akin to the gentle undulations of a lake's surface. The broadsword vanished into thin air, only to reappear within the confines of the system space. He could even perceive it with his consciousness. Within this space, a complete suit of armor lay securely in place. Su Hao silently intoned, "Equip." In the next instant, on the balcony of his dormitory, a shimmer enveloped his form. As the wave dissipated, he transformed into a heavily armored warrior, standing nearly 2 meters tall, with the armor weighing 25 kilograms, or approximately 50 pounds. Initially, he felt the weight settle heavily upon him, but that sensation quickly faded. His physique and strength were now more than sufficient to bear the daily burden of such armor, even allowing him to run with ease. A profound sense of security washed over him. Lifting his hands to examine them, he noticed the arm guards were tightly encased, constructed of alloy steel on the inner layer, while the outer layer consisted of interlocking armor plates and embellishments, offering dual protection. No wonder it could withstand a 7.62mm bullet. The gloves were crafted from leather, with alloy plates embedded in the outer layer, and even featured razor-like spikes on the backs of his hands. Su Hao explored the rest of his armor, and upon glancing around, he discovered a full-length mirror in the female dormitory. He walked over, the sound of his armor clinking with each step, and gazed into the mirror. Clad in a full helmet, chest plate, shoulder guards, a beastly visage, and a tiger head belt, he could confidently declare that he was armed to the teeth, whether in ancient or modern times. Elated, Su Hao extended his hand, summoning the broadsword into his palm. Holding the blade, he gazed into the mirror, speechless. An aura of lethal intent seemed to surge forth from the reflection. Excellent. Su Hao tightened his grip on the hilt. With this magnificent armor, it was only fitting to slay some zombies as a tribute. But where to hunt? After some contemplation, he decided it would be wise to venture into a populous area in search of the system's goddess team missions, while also attempting to trigger additional tasks. Operating as a lone wolf would likely limit him to the singular task of exterminating zombies, which would be detrimental to his growth. Thus, he set his sights on the art building. In this university, entering through the south gate led to various administrative and academic buildings, with the main gate serving as the central axis. The art building was located behind the teaching structures. Further back were the sports field and various club buildings, while the dormitories flanked both sides of the central axis, one side towards the southeast and the other towards the northwest. Su Hao's dormitory was situated towards the southeast. Therefore, he resolved to traverse towards the rear of the school, passing by a lake and a park square along the way. Having confirmed his objective, Su Hao nodded. "Let us depart." He first concentrated to replace the heavy armor with his previous attire, and then leapt from the balcony of his dormitory. Descending steadily to the ground floor via the wall, he swiftly donned his heavy armor upon landing. He had no intention of exerting unnecessary effort by wearing heavy armor while scaling down the wall, nor did he leap from the second floor again. His previous jump from the cafeteria was motivated by the presence of zombies on the first floor, as he sought to conserve energy rather than engage in futile combat. Now, however, he chose not to jump for the sake of prudence. Lacking superhuman strength, a twisted ankle would render his heavy armor useless, jeopardizing his subsequent plans and prolonging his recovery time, which he could not afford. Such a fundamental mistake was unacceptable. Even a slight chance of failure warranted caution, for one misstep could lead to irrevocable loss. Steadiness was paramount. The moment he donned the heavy armor, a profound sense of security enveloped him. These zombies would merely tarnish his armor. Now, it was a matter of his stamina and recovery. Armed with a knife, Su Hao advanced toward the art building. The sound of his iron boots striking the concrete was unavoidable, echoing with a rhythmic thud. Zombies within a 510-meter radius would hear the noise, immediately lunging toward him with outstretched claws. There was nothing to discuss. Death awaited them. Through the cold visor of his helmet, Su Hao wielded his knife, effortlessly cleaving the heads of the approaching zombies. One strike for each. 3 zombies, 3 heads severed. As long as they did not surround him in large numbers simultaneously, he could dispatch them swiftly, thus avoiding encirclement. The density of zombies he faced was merely the result of the earlier distraction caused by the male lead. Otherwise, he would have been besieged by a horde by now. Thus, Su Hao continued his path, slaying as he went, traversing through 45 dormitory buildings. The commotion he created caught the attention of some students remaining in their dorms, who peeked out to observe, gasping in astonishment. Who is that person? Where did he acquire such armor? He slays them effortlessly. Can he save us? Unlikely. There are too many zombies in the dorms. He is attempting to break through to the sports building. Entering the dorm might hinder his ability. Wait, there are significantly fewer zombies now. Perhaps we should also attempt to break free. Remaining in the dorm will only lead to starvation. Are we really going to break out? Once we leave, there may be no return. Where do we go? First, let's gather as a group. Head to the less populated buildings. That seems feasible. I too wish to slay zombies. Shall we go? Let us go. Chapter 010. Turning the area into a no-man's land. Advancing elsewhere, armed sister. Within the school, Su Hao continued to slay as he advanced. Surrounding zombies, as long as they numbered fewer than 10, would be dispatched effortlessly by him in mere moments. As long as he was not faced with dozens of zombies simultaneously, he could navigate the situation with ease. Unless he were to be overwhelmed by hundreds, then a more careful approach would be necessary. Within the confines of the dormitory area, the majority of the zombies have been drawn away, leaving only small clusters of 3 to 5 lingering nearby, some having been lured from the dormitory buildings. Su Hao forged ahead, dispatching foes as he traversed through 7 dormitory buildings, ultimately emerging from the confines of the dormitory zone. Behind him, a no-man's land had been carved out, extending from the cafeteria to the edge of the dormitory area, where all the zombies lay lifeless along the roadside, revealing a conspicuous pathway amidst the apocalypse. However, it was evident that it would not be long before more zombies would wander in to fill the gap. Beyond the dormitory area lay a park square, accompanied by a serene lake, and just beyond that lay the vicinity of the art building and the sports building. Su Hao surveyed the road, the cobblestone path, and the grassy park, finally resolutely stepping onto the lawn. Though his foot sank deeply into the grass, muffling his footsteps, he thought little of the delicate blades at such a critical moment. Clad in heavy armor and wielding a blade, his imposing figure approached 2 meters in height, exuding the essence of a heavyweight combat athlete, rather than that of a bulkier weightlifter. Yet, after only a couple of strides on the lawn, he was startled by the sound of rapid footsteps approaching from behind. Turning around, he beheld 3 young men and 2 young women, all desperately clutching makeshift weapons, table legs, bed frames, and steel pipes, as they charged toward him, taking full advantage of the path he had cleared. Their visages contorted with exertion, they sprinted with all their might. Arriving breathless by Su Hao's side, one young man, drenched in sweat and gasping, bent over to catch his breath, coughing violently as he pleaded, "Brother, where are you headed? Cough, cough, take us with you." Another young man chimed in, "Let us head to the sports building. The staff dormitory is nearby, and there are many clubs at the sports building." One of the girls, having regained her composure, added eagerly, "Big brother, we should join the fencing club. They have javelins and weapons at the sports building." The last girl concurred, "Yes, there are fewer zombies there." These individuals were university students, embodying the educational aspirations of a new generation. Though there are always a few ne'er-do-wells among them, they are indeed a minority. The majority are ordinary, decent people. In a brief moment, each had formulated their own analysis, all quite reasonable. Su Hao had also intended to head toward the art building and the vicinity of the sports building, and upon hearing their words, he nodded in silent agreement. With his weapon in hand, he turned to them and declared, "Follow me." "All right, sure, brother." Mission triggered. Investigate the school's art district, sports building, and art building. Mission brief. What is the current situation of the entire school? How many supplies are there? How many people remain? Please identify the first group of individuals banding together within the school, gather information, and determine the subsequent course of action. The task rewards are limitless divine selections. Once. After reviewing the task description, Su Hao comprehended that this mission resembled a precursor quest often found in online games. It was evident that one must engage in order to trigger further events. His assessment was that the more, the merrier, rewards bestowed without effort are indeed a boon. At this moment, he had transitioned from being alone to a cohort of 6. Su Hao did not particularly supervise them. He merely advanced while dispatching foes. He initially presumed that the 6 trailing behind him would be hesitant to confront the zombies. However, the reality was quite the opposite. When 2 or 3 zombies approached, they collaborated to vanquish 1 or 2, with even the female members daring to feint the zombies' movements while allowing their male counterparts to deliver the finishing blows. This was a stark contrast to what he had witnessed in films. Yet, it made sense. Those who feared engaging with zombies were likely still cowering in their dormitories, too frightened to venture out. Those who dared to emerge were inherently courageous and proactive. This was perhaps nature's filtration system at work. The individuals he encountered were primarily those willing to take action. Those too timid to engage would not have survived to this point. remaining hidden in their dorms. Hence, this selection process meant that those who chose to follow Su Hao were indeed brave and capable. With swift precision, Su Hao dispatched 3 more zombie heads. Observing the others collaborating to vanquish a single zombie, he offered words of praise. You all are quite impressive. Such individuals were worthy of accompanying him, rather than a group that merely wailed ineffectually, contributing nothing of value. Once they had dispatched the zombie and confirmed their surroundings were clear, the initial male expressed admiration for Su Hao. Brother, you are truly formidable. It feels so secure walking behind you. When you step forward, it feels as if the sun has set. Brother, my name is Chun Jiu. Are you the esteemed leader of the swordsmanship club? I can't believe our school has someone so strong. Su Hao shook his head. I am Su Hao, a freshman. Upon hearing this, the 3 males and 2 females widened their eyes in astonishment. One of the girls exclaimed, Brother, you must not turn into a zombie. Otherwise, humanity would be doomed. Are you speaking sensibly? Su Hao replied, noting the zombies beginning to wander closer. Let us move quickly to the sports building. He ceased any further chatter, aware that it was nearing noon and these students likely had not eaten. All right. Yes, brother. The 6 continued towards the sports building. Most zombies fell to Su Hao's blade, while the few that slipped through were dealt with by the cooperative efforts of the students behind him. The group traversed the lakeside, through the park, and across the square, finally crossing a road before arriving at the square in front of the sports building. Throughout the journey, Su Hao had dispatched dozens of zombies. Yet he felt no trace of fatigue, merely a slight increase in his breath. Upon reaching the plaza in front of the sports building, he immediately noticed a group of students had organized themselves to eliminate the zombies that wandered close by. However, it appeared that the number of zombies attracted was overwhelming. There were over 100. These individuals wielded various weapons, including spears, improvised arms, and even sharpened blades. At the forefront of this group stood a girl with flowing long hair, brandishing a machete longer than Su Hao's own broadsword. With a swift motion, she effortlessly severed the head of a zombie, albeit with a hint of exertion. If Su Hao was a heavily armored warrior, then this girl was a lightly equipped fighter. She stood nearly 1.7 meters tall, clad only in a soft armor top, and as she lifted her head, strands of hair clung to her cheek, dampened by sweat. Her amber eyes glistened like molten glass, framed by delicate features, while her lips were tightly pressed together, as she evaded the grasp of the zombies. The muscles in her neck and thighs were taut and fluid, and her strikes with the blade exhibited a beauty of strength. Companions in this chaotic world, Su Hao mused. Talent is abundant in times of turmoil. Such bravery in this girl. Who is her commander? She must possess a commendable score in the system. Upon witnessing her, Chen Jiu exclaimed in astonishment, That's Senior Han Jiangxue. She is here, and those must be members of the swordsmanship club. How wonderful. They are armed. But there are too many zombies over there. What should we do, brother? Should we lend a hand? Han Jiangxue? Su Hao suddenly recalled that she was the person Huang Shanshan had bragged about knowing before her demise. There was little to deliberate. He was here for 2 purposes, to complete his mission and to find someone. Gripping his sword, Su Hao began to jog, resembling a beast unleashed, ready to strike. I shall engage as a heavily armored warrior. Chapter 011. The armored warrior charges forth, annihilating the zombies. In the plaza before the main entrance of the sports building, this group had been resisting the horde of zombies for some time prior to Su Hao's arrival. After a boy had drawn away some of the zombies, it had caused a ripple effect, leading to a chaotic movement of the remaining undead, ultimately converging near the sports building, which was typically one of the least frequented structures. Clubs are typically bustling with people during evenings and weekends, so when the apocalypse struck, the sports complex was sparsely populated, consequently harboring fewer zombies. In the aftermath of the calamity, conscious students near the sports building hurriedly gathered. Several clubs happened to be conducting their routine activities, among them the Kendo Club. The students seized their weapons, modifying and crafting makeshift arms, sharpening wooden spears, and wielding javelins as tools to combat the undead, which initially proved somewhat effective. The Kendo Club possessed a few edged weapons, mostly treasured collectibles, but now these relics found their true purpose. As the top-ranked 4th-year member in combat, Han Jiangxue naturally claimed one of these blades, a finely honed Miao Dao, clad in her customary soft armor used for combat training. She refrained from donning additional gear as it hindered mobility. It was June, and wearing just a short-sleeved shirt and shorts, she soon found herself drenched in sweat. The realities of battle far more taxing than imagined. After a clean, decisive stroke severed a zombie's head, Han panted heavily, her cheeks flushed, rather than feeling nauseous. Beneath her exhaustion stirred a restless exhilaration. The thrill of slaying living foes was unexpectedly invigorating. For a moment, she disregarded the encircling horde swelling beyond 100, poised to engulf them. Senior Han. Voices rang out nearby. There are too many zombies. What shall we do? Another urged anxiously, "Fall back, senior. Someone has been bitten. Retreat and secure the doors." Snapping back to reality, Han realized the sheer number of undead formed an impenetrable human wall. The mass was so dense that it obscured any view beyond, leaving the total count unknown but undeniably vast. Grinding her teeth, she hacked away while strategizing. Retreating meant the sports building would be surrounded, sealing their fate with no escape. Standing ground seemed equally untenable unless they annihilated every last zombie. Yet, with only a few dozen survivors against over 100 undead, expecting each to kill multiple foes was unrealistic. Both weaponry and stamina fell short. Was fleeing their only recourse? Abandoning the sports complex appeared inevitable. Just as their defenses teetered on collapse, a thunderous pounding echoed from the zombies' flank. The heavy steps thudded like a colossal bear ass, each footfall resonating through the earth with a primal, unsettling force. By the time the group registered the sound, the sickening slice of blades severing flesh had already begun. From afar, severed zombie heads and shoulders soared through the air, crashing down with wet thuds. Su Hao charged forward, blade drawn, hastening into the fray with renewed vigor. As he drew near, the blade surged forward, imbued with the force of a relentless charge, striking with tremendous might. He did not simply behead. Instead, he cleaved through the waist. The heavy broadsword swung down with lethal intent, meeting the zombie's midsection. In that fleeting moment of contact, it was as if a hot knife sliced through butter, effortlessly severing the creature's body. But that was not the end. The blade pressed onward. 1 head, 2 heads, 3 heads, 5 heads. Within a blink, Su Hao executed a series of 8 precise waist-level strikes, before shifting from left to right, continuing his onslaught. Behind him, Chen Jiyu and several classmates stood in awe. The scene was electrifying, igniting their bloodlust while instilling a sense of trepidation. "Charge!" Chen Jiyu shouted, gripping a steel pipe tightly. Following closely in the path Su Hao had carved through the horde, they did not gaze ahead. They merely synchronized their efforts, dispatching the remaining zombies on the flanks. At this moment, Su Hao resembled an indomitable armored juggernaut, his towering figure clad in heavy armor, soaring above 2 meters in height. As he navigated through the swarm of undead, as if traversing an uninhabited realm, with reckless abandon, he wielded his sharpened blade, each downward stroke flawlessly severing several zombies at once. The scene was a gruesome ballet of dismembered limbs and splattering blood, exuding sheer brutality. In the sports hall plaza, Han Jiangxue and her companions stood agape, eyes wide and mouths agog, as if struck by thunder. They were momentarily entranced. In the brief time it took to gather their senses, Su Hao had already dispatched over 30 zombies, visibly clearing a vast expanse. "What on earth? Who is this?" they gasped. "Stop staring, let's lend a hand." Realizing the urgency, they rushed forward to assist. Han Jiangxue, equally astonished by the armored warrior, beheld the flashing blade. Blood and flesh erupting in every direction, severed limbs and heads soaring like vegetables being effortlessly chopped, only to fall heavily back to the ground. The scene laid bare the essence of violence, shocking to behold. It provoked her to bite her lip, an insatiable urge coursing through her veins. As the club members rallied to assist, she too felt a surge of primal strength. Gripping her machete, she charged forward, emulating the armored warrior's method of slaughtering the undead. However, she soon realized her limitations. Attempting a waist strike, her blade became lodged in the zombie's midsection as it clawed at her with bared fangs. With a swift kick, she wrenched her blade free, dispatching the fallen creature. It was evident she could not match the overwhelming power of the armored warrior. Amidst the chaos of blood and flesh, he epitomized raw strength, a feat she could not replicate. Han Jiangxue could only showcase her own finesse and elegance, swiftly and decisively severing the zombies' necks. While she fought, she discreetly observed the armored warrior, captivated by his prowess. She keenly observed that the heavily armored warrior initially cared about the elegance of decapitating zombies. But as the hordes grew overwhelming, he seemed to abandon such finesse, focusing solely on the act of severing heads with efficiency and precision, disregarding neatness or height. At times, he twirled his blade with a flourish. Under the shimmering light of his weapon, the nearby zombies would have their heads effortlessly severed. So swift was his movement that it became difficult to discern the very act, leaving only a fleeting shadow in his wake. How formidable! Han Jiangxue marveled inwardly. Be it strength, skill, or experience, this armored warrior appeared as if he were a hexagonal fighter, possessing nary a weakness. After a brief moment, those around began to cease their efforts. Realizing the zombies had been sufficiently dispatched, Han Jiangxue abruptly plunged her blade into a corpse, using it to support herself as she gasped for breath. Her lungs felt as though they might burst, each inhale an agonizing struggle. The others nearby were in much the same state. With great effort, She lifted her weary head to gaze upon the armored warrior at the center of the battlefield. At that moment, she was drenched in sweat, her hair clinging to her cheeks, droplets cascading down her elbows. In the heart of the battlefield, the warrior shook his hand, executing a swift motion with his blade, causing the blood that clung to it to splatter like arrows released from a bow, crashing onto the ground. Slowly, he turned to face their direction. It was noon. The bright sunlight cascaded over his armor, reflecting dazzling rays of cold light. In that instant, his figure appeared almost ethereal, reminiscent of a deity from myth, radiating an aura of awe. Chapter 012. Fear is the instinct of living beings. Courage is the anthem of humanity. As Su Hao turned and approached, Han Jiangxue and the others, though fully aware he was an ally, felt their hearts racing, the tension and panic echoing in their minds. Their bodies felt taut, overwhelmed by uncertainty. This was the effect of Su Hao's prowess. Observing their expressions, Su Hao understood the situation. He reached up to remove his face guard, revealing a resolute and handsome visage. His gaze swept across the crowd, and upon confirming their humanity beneath the armor, they collectively exhaled in relief. Once his identity was established, someone cautiously inquired, "Are you a student of Jiang University?" "Yes," Su Hao nodded, scanning the group. "How many of you are gathered here?" "Only a few dozen," Han Jiangxue, having regained her composure, stepped forward to add. Su Hao glanced at her blade. "How many such weapons do you possess? And food?" Han Jiangxue regretfully shook her head. "We have only 3 sharpened blades. The rest are homemade, and we lack the tools for further refinement." At that moment, Chun Jiu interjected, "Brother, there are 2 small shops in the sports building, but other places likely have no food left. However, the shops should have a small storage area." "Indeed," Han Jiangxue nodded. "That is the current situation. The weapons are scarce, but the provisions are ample, with a modest group of merely dozens, truly a nascent team, possessing little. It is rather unfortunate." Su Hao shook his head and continued to inquire, "Who takes command among you?" The group hesitated for a moment, then turned their gazes towards Han Jiangxue. A senior in her 4th year, she had consistently ranked first in military training for 4 consecutive years, excelling in both academics and athletics. It was said that she hailed from a well-off family, with school officials being her relatives, coupled with her demonstrated prowess in dispatching zombies. Beyond Su Hao, she was the most qualified, thus it was only natural for her to assume leadership. However, after a moment of silence, Han Jiangxue looked at Su Hao and replied, "Not yet. I will take the initiative to organize." "Very well," Su Hao nodded in agreement. At that moment, a sudden rumble emanated from someone's stomach, soon followed by others joining in, including Chun Jiu. The group was evidently famished. It was then that Han Jiangxue realized and beckoned Su Hao. "Let's return to the gymnasium. We still have plenty to eat." Su Hao nodded. "Let us go." The group made their way towards the gymnasium. However, during their return, 2 among them suddenly broke into tears as they walked. The others turned to see. After a moment of composure, one revealed his arm, while the other exposed his back, both weeping in despair. "I have been captured. Please, do not concern yourselves with me. I shall find a room to lock myself in." The other, pallid as a ghost, said nothing. The group was taken aback, and a wave of despondency, sorrow, and grief enveloped them all. Han Jiangxue pressed her lips together and nodded. "All right, let us first rest well." Su Hao glanced at her. Despite her words and demeanor, there was an absence of sorrow in her eyes, as if the plight of their comrades did not weigh heavily upon her. Was she cold-blooded? Perhaps not entirely. She had previously led the charge, dispatching the most zombies. Among the crowd, some remained taciturn, tightening their clothing. Meanwhile, Su Hao seized the opportunity to discreetly gather information from the girls around him as they walked. The first to capture his attention was, of course, Han Jiangxue. Han Jiangxue, age, 21, external comprehensive score, 94, detailed data. Internal comprehensive score, 91, detailed data. Ability comprehensive score, 96, detailed data. Advisory for recruitment, extremely high. The above scores have an average value of 60, with a maximum of 100. Why is the internal score the lowest? Su Hao pondered with curiosity. A lower internal score suggests issues with personality, values, and morality, rather than physical attributes. He wondered if he had discerned part of the truth. Did Han Jiangxue indeed possess character flaws? Upon clicking for detailed data, his suspicions were confirmed. The system's internal assessment of her is as follows. She harbors a deep admiration for violence and bloodshed, exhibits indifference toward the weak, relishes brutality, and possesses a genetic predisposition for warfare, albeit at a nascent stage. It is no wonder she exhibits such behavior. Indeed, Su Hao had surmised correctly to some extent. It is precisely because of her nature that the apocalypse has bestowed upon her this platform, granting her the means to wield a blade against the living. Consequently, she shows no regard for those 2 individuals. This is the first time Su Hao has encountered a woman of such character. and with a hint of curiosity. He turned to observe her once more. At that moment, Han Jiangxue turned her head, and their gazes met. There was much the two wished to discuss. Su Hao tilted his head slightly, signaling a desire for a conversation later. Han Jiangxue was momentarily taken aback, her face flushing slightly as she nodded, yes. Upon arriving at the sports building, they discovered a portion of individuals who had not participated in the battle. Su Hao glanced again at Han Jiangxue, who shook her head in disappointment. Su Hao quickly grasped the situation. Humanity, indeed, is complex. Among this group, there were not only students, but also teachers and other staff members. This contingent clearly wished to avoid combat, yearning instead for official rescue. Another segment lacked weaponry, thus remaining behind to offer minimal assistance. As they witnessed the return of the others, a throng of people quickly surrounded them, chattering incessantly. You're back. Did you sustain any injuries? That would be troublesome. Did you fall, or were you captured? Oh, don't go fighting anymore. There are so many zombies. Let us conserve our resources and wait for official rescue. What if someone dies? Wait a moment. This person is injured. What should we do? Should we confine them? I said we shouldn't go out to fight. Let us just block the doors. Shoo, who was that person in full armor? Where did they acquire such armor? They uttered a myriad of comments. Su Hao heard them all, yet most were rather unpleasant. After all, to alleviate their guilt, they needed to cast the individuals who ventured into battle in a negative light, thereby validating their own choices. As the saying goes, one's posterior dictates one's perspective. Allegiance determines stance. The two injured individuals, upon hearing this, turned ashen, filled with regret over their earlier decision to engage in combat. Had they known, they would not have sought to prove their mettle. Sighing, Su Hao shook his head in resignation. He approached the two injured individuals, gently patting their shoulders and saying, prior to this, I dealt with a senior who transformed into a zombie after being captured. I am uncertain whether humanity can withstand the mutated virus. But perhaps if we endure, we may emerge stronger. Do not wait until the very end to heed such words, regretting your past and denying the person you once were. Fear is an instinct of living beings, while courage is the anthem of humanity. Chapter 013. The State of the Refuge and Su Hao's Future Plans. Fear is an instinct of living beings. Courage is the anthem of humanity. These individuals who dare to emerge and engage in battle, in Su Hao's view, should not be belittled by these timid souls, even if they are not superior to this group of reclusive masters. Upon hearing his words, the cowering individuals were taken aback, seemingly astonished that Su Hao felt entitled to make such a proclamation. Did he truly deserve to speak so boldly? Conversely, those who had previously ventured into battle were acutely aware of Su Hao's formidable prowess, effortlessly dispatching hordes of zombies as if they were mere vegetables. Indeed, the two injured individuals, upon hearing this, felt a glimmer of hope. They cast a fierce glance at the retreating crowd before one of them entered a classroom and promptly locked himself inside. The others could observe through the glass panels on the doors. Once inside, the retreating crowd, realizing there was no room for dissent, fell silent and began to disperse, seeking tasks to occupy themselves. Those with a sense of responsibility helped to gather supplies and prepare for transport, while the indifferent lounged idly, becoming nothing more than passive observers. Su Hao, witnessing this, couldn't help but scoff. It remains true that humanity's potential is starkly dichotomous, with individuals on either end of the spectrum fervently exploring their respective limits. This is precisely why Su Hao preferred not to associate with large groups, particularly those in safe zones or human settlements. In this apocalyptic world, he aspired to cultivate a small, exclusive team composed solely of exceptional talents. Quality over quantity was his mantra. A diverse array of skills was paramount. At that moment, Han Jiangxue returned from the warehouse with cola, bread, and chips, extending them to Su Hao while she herself carried bread and bottled water. Thank you. Su Hao expressed his gratitude, glancing towards the balcony on the second floor, signaling with his eyes. Han Jiangxue, equipped with a machete, nodded in understanding. The two of them made their way to the second floor balcony, food in hand. Su Hao remained clad in his heavy armor, having only removed his faceplate. His helmet still securely in place. To speak candidly, his head was not yet capable of deflecting arrows or bullets, but the helmet certainly could. Should anyone covet his blade and armor, it could lead to dire consequences, for in this apocalypse, such items were treasures beyond compare. As they walked, Su Hao twisted open a soda and took a sip. Upon reaching their destination, they found a place to sit, and after taking another swig, Su Hao reflected, I wonder if I will have the chance to enjoy this again in the future. If the opportunity arises, I must stockpile 1,000,000 bottles. Han Jiangxue chuckled softly at his words, glancing at the production date on her bottle of water. Regardless of the date, it could only last a maximum of 23 years. So would 1,000,000 bottles be consumed prematurely, or how would they be preserved? Su Hao possessed a system space, but he knew he could not reveal this at present. Items stored within that space remained in a state of stasis, impervious to decay for eons. Is the cold storage feasible, remaining frozen indefinitely? He jested. Han Jiangxue took a bite of her bread and shook her head, setting aside the issue of electricity. Even if the storage time were doubled to 45 years, would there still be Coca-Cola available then? What will the world look like by that time? Su Hao glanced at the Coca-Cola in his hand. It truly seemed a pity. Such a delightful beverage, how could it possibly vanish? Yet, upon further reflection, he mused, if the recipe were preserved, perhaps he could attempt to concoct it himself in the future. Surely, in a post-apocalyptic scenario, it would be a valued commodity. Coca-Cola, sweet and invigorating, would undoubtedly be one of the currencies of survival. Han Jiangxue nodded in agreement. Indeed, as they savored their meal, they quickly finished the chips and bread. Once their hunger was satiated, they formally introduced themselves. I am a senior, Han Jiangxue. I am a freshman, Su Hao. After exchanging pleasantries, Han Jiangxue curiously examined Su Hao's formidable armor and large sword, inquiring, where did you acquire these? This armor must be custom-made by a renowned craftsman, costing no less than 50,000, perhaps even 500,000. And this sword is certainly valued in the thousands. As the president of the swordsmanship club, and with a bit of affluence, Han Jiangxue was well aware of the worth of such items, true treasures among adult collectibles. She too possessed two fine swords at home, one crafted from Damascus steel and the other from pattern-welded steel. Regrettably, they remained at her residence, not at school. They are no longer of use to others, so they were given to me, Su Hao replied, shaking his head, unable to elaborate further. They were provided by the system. After all, they were merely unwanted by others. Well, Han Jiangxue remarked, still coveting Su Hao's sword, may I hold it? Su Hao extended his hand, playfully beckoning towards her sword. I would like to see yours as well. They exchanged swords for inspection. Upon grasping the sword, Han Jiangxue was utterly captivated, biting her lip in delight, akin to a gaming enthusiast encountering a high-end graphics card. Not only did she caress it with care, but she even brought it close to her nose to savor its essence. It was clear she had a genuine affection for blades. Meanwhile, Su Hao examined the Miao sword. It was rather unremarkable, merely an ordinary blade. After Han Jiangxue's recent use, there were noticeable nicks, evidently from striking bone. Such was expected. Swords are considerably thinner than kitchen knives, particularly compared to cleavers or hatchets, which can sometimes prove more durable under improper usage. Su Hao removed his gloves and flicked the blade's surface. The sound it produced was rather dull. Han Jiangxue sighed as she returned the large sword to Su Hao, reclaiming her Miao sword. Just an ordinary blade. Such a pity I didn't bring my better ones. Do you have many at home? Su Hao inquired, intrigued. Yes. Han Jiangxue nodded. I have 2 top-tier swords, along with numerous collectibles, at least 16 in total. However, the question remains. No one knows how things are at home. Yet, Su Hao is free from such concerns. The two engaged in conversation, subsequently discussing the current situation. Facing the crowd below, Han Jiangxue silently shook her head, a gesture that conveyed both distrust and disappointment. She had no intention of leading them. Her sole desire was to fight for survival, and perhaps, if fortune allowed, to return home. Thus, Han Jiangxue found herself reluctantly thrust into the spotlight, which explained her earlier expression. She then turned to Su Hao and inquired, from your previous tone and remarks, it appears you two are disinclined to form a coalition with them, correct? They are weak, timid, and devoid of responsibility. Leading them holds no significance or purpose. You will likely seek an opportunity to depart soon. A spark of intensity ignited in Han Jiangxue's gaze, reflecting Su Hao's own sentiments. He nodded affirmatively, stating, I can lead a small team, but I have no aspirations of becoming a leader. That is not my role. Leadership should naturally belong to those who are dominant and possess vision. Su Hao found the notion intolerable. While he may have commanded bases and played the role of a war criminal in strategic games, such maneuvers in reality were altogether different. He preferred to cultivate small groups and elite factions. Upon hearing Su Hao's thoughts, Han Jiangxue pondered for a moment, her eyes growing brighter. In this dystopian world, the weak band together, while the strong tend to attract one another. Especially inherent is the instinct to seek strength. As long as one possesses sufficient power, there is no need for overt action. Others will naturally gravitate towards you. Those who believe force is necessary likely have never experienced true strength or charisma in their lives. Just as Han Jiangxue was about to speak after taking a sip of water, a sudden cry of terror erupted from downstairs. Su Hao quietly sealed the bottle, rose, and grasped his knife, heading down to investigate the commotion. Han Jiangxue silently picked up her machete and followed suit. Chapter 014. Slaying former allies, capturing Han Jiangxue. Upon reaching the ground floor, there was no need for words. The first sight that greeted them was a zombie in the throes of mutation. Astonishingly, It was one of the members who had gone out to fight earlier. From the incessant bleeding at the wound on his waist, it was evident that he had not merely been scratched, he had been bitten. This explained the rapidity of his transformation. Typically, a flesh wound takes half a day to a full day to result in mutation. In cases of severe injury, it could occur in merely hours. The speed of this process bore resemblance to that of snake venom, nerve toxins, blood toxins, or perhaps a combination thereof. The individual lay on the ground, emitting incomprehensible growls from his throat, a sound far from human. Surrounding individuals took cover, some brandishing weapons in preparation for defense. Upon seeing Su Hao and Han Jianshu approach, Chun Jiu hurried over and remarked, "He has sustained injuries, but has refrained from mentioning them. However, the wound is substantial and has rapidly mutated. Fortunately, it is neither night nor a time of rest. Had he successfully mutated during such hours, he could have easily claimed several lives." The onlookers cast sympathetic yet disdainful glances at the afflicted individual. This encapsulates the inherent contradictions of humanity. To venture into battle is an act of bravery. Yet to remain silent about one's injuries is equally understandable. Fears of abandonment, blame, and despair regarding the future are among the myriad reasons. Nonetheless, once mutation occurs, there is no turning back. Silently, Su Hao unsheathed his knife and approached the afflicted man, calmly addressing those around him, "I shall keep watch." The crowd nodded in agreement, those familiar with Su Hao feeling a sense of reassurance. As for the man's fate, there was little to discuss. A successful mutation would mean death, while failure would lead to congratulations. Han Jianxue, clutching her machete, joined Su Hao at his side, and thus, they remained still in the center of the gymnasium, while others rested on the periphery, observing. The mutated individual lay helplessly on the floor, trembling slightly and emitting faint wails. His eyes were bloodshot, suggesting imminent bleeding, while uncontrolled drool pooled beneath him. The scene appeared agonizing, yet consciousness had fled from his eyes. Recognizing this, Su Hao understood that mutation had essentially succeeded, devoid of awareness. He was no longer human. However, Su Hao chose to wait a while longer. Half an hour later, a guttural, inhuman roar echoed through the room. Su Hao quietly drew his knife and, with a swift motion, dispatched the creature. The body convulsed before the head and torso gently separated, collapsing beside one another. The onlookers widened their eyes in astonishment at the clean and decisive execution. "Clean it up," Su Hao instructed, sheathing his knife and turning to leave. Han Jianshu, witnessing the swift action, bit her lip, a slight gasp escaping her. Once Su Hao departed, she signaled for those nearby to assist with the cleanup before following him back to the second-floor balcony. Upon arriving on the second floor, Su Hao inquired directly, "What are your plans moving forward?" He sought to clarify the current situation and strategize for his next steps. Han Jianshu understood immediately. "Do you intend to leave?" Su Hao nodded. "Staying with the group serves no purpose. I aim to seek out the elite and form my own team." Han Jianshu's eyes brightened at this prospect. "What, in your view, qualifies as elite?" Su Hao casually counted on his fingers. "Strength, knowledge, skills, with a total score of 100. As long as one aspect scores at least 85, one can be considered an elite. Do I qualify?" Han Jianshu inquired directly. Su Hao gazed into her eyes, which were a deep brown, brimming with an intense yearning for the thrill of violence and fervor. Her upbringing in an exemplary family and the tranquility of society had become her shackles. It was only in the apocalypse that her true potential could be unleashed. Su Hao dismissed the notion of qualification. With an overall score exceeding 90, she undoubtedly fit the criteria. Hence, he did not wish to engage in lengthy discourse and straightforwardly asked, "Will you follow me?" "Yes." "Can feelings develop over time?" "Yes." "Good." The exchange was swift, reminiscent of a rapid-fire QA session. By the time Han Jianshu processed the conversation, her cheeks flushed crimson, and she shot him a fierce glare. The hastiness of their dialogue had bypassed her conscious thought, emerging as a mere instinctive reaction. This was precisely the effect Su Hao desired. In such dire times, what was there to be reserved about? Mutual willingness was already a positive sign. Congratulations on completing the task, assembling a goddess team by recruiting a goddess. Reward: one-time infinite divine selection. You may view the detailed profile panel of team member Han Jianshu. Su Hao decided to open this reward later and first contemplate their immediate plans. Returning to the conversation, Han Jianshu implicitly accepted Su Hao's leadership and countered, "So, what do you think we should do next?" Su Hao glanced at his tasks. In fact, he still had 3 tasks remaining. The goddess mission could be repeated. Among them, one pertaining to the arts district remained unfinished, as he had only explored the sports building, leaving the art building unexamined, along with an unfinished challenge of slaying 1,000 zombies. Task: Zombie Slaying Challenge. 376-1000. There were still nearly 600 zombies left to defeat. However, Zombies could be dispatched anywhere, so there was no rush. The primary focus now was to recruit talent. After a moment of contemplation, Su Hao asked, "Based on my earlier criteria, how many talents do you think exist in the school, or whom do you know?" Han Jiangxue had already considered herself part of the team. Therefore, her initial thought was to determine what kind of talent to recruit for their group. After pondering briefly, she replied, "In our school, only the medical department would be useful to us. I only know Assistant Suqing from the medical department. I don't know anyone else." With a slight bow of her head, she added, "I generally don't make an effort to meet people." "That's fine." Su Hao waved his hand dismissively, indicating it was of no consequence. Someone like Han Jiangxue truly did not need to connect with others. Her own well-being was sufficient. Su Hao contemplated the various faculties within the school. Fields such as Chinese language, fine arts, politics, and education held little value in an apocalyptic context. However, individuals from the medical school were indeed of great significance. After a moment of contemplation, Su Hao finalized his subsequent plans. He decided to lead the group downstairs to clear the teaching buildings, dormitories, and cafeteria of the medical college, in search of Suqing, as you mentioned. If she could not be found, they would simply move on. Once the area was cleared, they would depart to seek out talent beyond the campus. "All right," Han Jiangxue nodded, but then suddenly inquired, "What if we find her? Even if we do find her, we will still leave. You will come to understand the latter matters in due time." Su Hao replied, hinting at the evolution of their abilities. By that time, locating suitable candidates would be significantly easier, as they could directly target individuals with exceptional abilities. Han Jiangxue nodded, refraining from further questions. Understood. There were many subsequent matters to attend to. Su Hao was reluctant to squander too much time at the university, which offered scant resources. He needed to expedite his expedition outside, raiding malls, pharmacies, gas stations, and gathering tools, among other necessities. Furthermore, he aimed to scour industrial zones and small workshops for machinery, lathes, and manufacturing equipment. These were the truly invaluable assets. Mission triggered. Raid Jiangda. Chapter 15. Stamina Restoration Potion. Comprehensive Map Watch. Mission triggered. Raid Jiangda. Mission description. You have discovered that Jiangda does not appear to be a favorable location for you, as resources are scarce and talent is unclear. Please swiftly assess Jiangda supplies and personnel to proceed with the next phase of your plan. Mission requirements. Clear at least 35 areas of Jiangda. Mission reward. 1. Unlimited divine choice. This mission differed from the previous one, as it included specific requirements, namely to clear at least 1/3 of Jiangda's territory. Within this mission, Su Hao was able to access detailed information, revealing the extent of his raiding area. Upon opening the small map of Jiangda, he observed that only the sports building and the arts building were marked in green, indicating safe zones. Other areas varied from light red to deep red in color. Some roads devoid of zombies were marked in light red, while places like the dormitories were deep red. The teaching building was marked in normal red. The southern cafeteria, which he had cleared significantly, was also light red. From this, Su Hao grasped the reality. Jiangda truly lacked value. A university is primarily an educational institution, and, aside from mechanical, electromechanical, and industrial colleges, it generally harbors minimal practical resources. Liberal arts universities hold little worth in a post-apocalyptic scenario, whether in terms of supplies, machinery, or specialized talent. Jiangda was indeed one such institution. As the afternoon wore on, the group downstairs took the opportunity to rest, with many indulging in afternoon naps due to sheer exhaustion. They did not possess Su Hao's remarkable constitution. After exerting themselves so vigorously to fend off zombies at noon, their bodies would require a full night to recuperate, while those less robust or unaccustomed to physical activity might need up to 2 or 3 days to recover. Han Jiangxue stifled a yawn. Gazing at Su Hao's heavy armor, she inquired, "Aren't you going to take it off? It must be quite warm in that." Su Hao shook his head, replying, "Not at all. Primarily because I do not trust the people here. Furthermore, the material of the armor is highly insulating. Its lining absorbs moisture swiftly, and the alloy dissipates heat, thus maintaining a comfortably bearable temperature. Without air conditioning, it is preferable to remain clad rather than undress." However, as they were on the second floor and surrounded by no one, Su Hao pondered for a moment, glancing at Han Jiangxue, who was fixated on him. He then clapped his hands gently. With a sudden ripple in the air, reminiscent of summer heat waves distorting space, his heavy armor vanished in an instant, replaced by a short-sleeved shirt and shorts. Han Jiangxue's eyes widened in sheer astonishment. At such close proximity, she was certain she had not misperceived. It had disappeared in an instant. Her eyes shimmered with wonder, akin to stars reflecting in the night sky as she gazed at Su Hao. "How did you accomplish that?" she asked. Su Hao contemplated and replied, "Consider it a spatial ability." "Spatial ability? Does that mean we can awaken similar powers?" she queried. "Yes, but but the timeline remains uncertain. Why is that? The apocalypse should be a period of evolution. All beings are evolving, and the future will be fraught with greater dangers. This revelation plunged Han Jiangxue into deep thought. After a moment of reflection, she cast another glance at Su Hao, feeling a surge of admiration for the man before her. The apocalypse had just begun, and while others languished in anticipation of their evolution, this man was already embarking on a path of destruction. If one were to rank talents, surely his was unparalleled. While others fought for survival, he was actively seeking out resources and allies. No wonder he held little regard for the people and place around them. He possessed grander ambitions and foresight. Or perhaps, in subduing her, he merely found it convenient? Maybe she had just barely met Su Hao's standards, if at all. She might be the first, thus he lowered his criteria as a harbinger of good fortune. Han Jiangxue's mind raced with possibilities. Regardless, she felt fortunate to have encountered Su Hao at the onset of the apocalypse, grateful to be the first to join his team. It was time to rest. Su Hao, too, required respite. He was not yet beyond human limits. He glanced at Han Jiangxue, who was lost in contemplation, and chose to disregard her. Leaning against the wall in a shaded area for a break. The marble-tiled structure proved advantageous. Even without air conditioning, it remained cool, ventilated, and refreshing. Han Jiangxue settled beside him, recognizing her own exhaustion. Aside from Su Hao, she had been the most formidable in combat during the day. Despite her years of rigorous training, she could not endure such exhaustion and certainly required ample rest. Thus, she closed her eyes and leaned against the wall to recuperate. In this moment, Su Hao seized the opportunity and silently contemplated. Utilize reward. Reward used. Infinite God-level choice once. Please select one from the following 3 options. Reward 1. 100 tons of braised pork. Reward 2. 3 bottles of stamina restoration potions. Reward 3. Holographic map watch. 100 tons of braised pork. Upon seeing this reward, Su Hao was not immediately captivated. Rather, his mouth watered. Braised pork, while he might have the chance to savor it in the near future, its availability would be uncertain in the aftermath of the apocalypse. However, he decided to pass on it and examine the details of Reward 2. Stamina Restoration Potion, a bottle of nutrient-rich elixir. Consuming it will replenish stamina from various aspects such as muscle fatigue, nutrient deficiency, neural electrical signals, and energy depletion. Aside from mental fatigue, drinking it will rejuvenate one's vigor. It could not restore mental fatigue, which made sense as mental fatigue pertains to the consciousness of the brain. Physical replenishment could only induce heightened alertness, akin to consuming coffee or hormones, but that does not equate to true recovery, hence the potion's explicit note. In any case, he would contemplate this later. Su Hao silently thought to review the details of Reward 3. Holographic Map Watch, a high-tech watch currently equipped with a holographic map and basic functionalities. Future rewards may be added, capable of manual or solar charging, and can be biologically bound. Functions: time, calendar, alarm clock, calculator, life monitoring, and the holographic map. Holographic map, capable of 3D imaging within the mind or void projection. The map can manually add scanned real-world maps or digital data, or automatically scan real data within a 10 kilometers radius and 1 kilometer altitude of the watch. This is high technology indeed. The basic functionalities aside, the watch's battery life and energy consumption were astonishing. Most importantly, the holographic map could directly absorb manual data or automatically scan the surrounding area, including vertical mapping. This was exponentially superior to radar capabilities, and this is merely one of the watch's functionalities. Future-related system rewards could be integrated as well. As for the stamina restoration potion, it could be disregarded. Su Hao silently decided, choose Reward 3. Sent to system space, can be donned with a thought. Chapter 016. For the sake of bathing, first strike Ming Lake. Bathing at Ming Lake. A high-tech watch appeared in the system space. Su Hao observed it. The overall appearance was impeccably crafted, neither too thin nor too thick, approximately the thickness of chopsticks, in a titanium silver hue, resembling a wristband without a display screen. Where's the display screen? Su Hao silently thought to wear it on his left wrist. The watch automatically adorned his left wrist. He reached out to touch it, and the entire band illuminated, displaying a flowing array of information. Ah, so it wasn't devoid of a display. Rather, the entire band itself served as a screen, capable of showcasing information on its surface. When inactive, it merely resembled a regular wristband. Su Hao examined the basic functions, all of which were familiar to him. Save for one intriguing feature, life monitoring. It accurately detected Su Hao's vital signs, including heart rate, physical activity, sleep patterns, and body composition, an impressive array of modern medical analytics. Remarkably, it encompassed most of these functionalities. Lastly, there was the holographic map, which promised to be exceedingly useful both in the present and future. Without a map, How could one discern directions, locate resources, or identify suitable areas for short, medium, or long-term habitation? Navigating a familiar city might pose no challenge, but in an unfamiliar one, it could spell disaster. Moreover, this holographic mapping function was superior. As Su Hao focused his thoughts on activating the holographic map, the next moment, the watch projected a three-dimensional modeled map. It displayed an area with a 10-kilometer radius and a vertical span of 1 kilometer. Starting from the sports building, much like the artificial intelligence projections seen in Iron Man, Su Hao needed only to control it with his thoughts or a slight movement of his fingers to zoom in or out at will. What a remarkable functionality this was. Su Hao scrutinized the map, carefully observing the school. Unfortunately, the watch's mapping feature only displayed the geographical layout. It did not reveal the surrounding zombies. Perhaps a different function, akin to a life detection device, was required. Continuing to inspect the school, he noted the 2 cafeterias, the warehouse, the medical building, and the medical storage. Su Hao pinpointed the location he valued most and realized he could also bookmark it on the map. Suddenly, he recalled that he could manually add scanned real-world maps or digital data. Could he incorporate the data from his phone? He retrieved his phone, which had been on standby for over a day and was nearly out of battery, with only a scant 8% remaining. It was currently in power-saving mode. Su Hao dismissed his concerns and promptly opened the map application on his phone, pressing it against the watch. Would it upload? Would he require an internet connection? Surely, it wouldn't necessitate a data cable. Where would he plug it in? He examined the phone again, but it remained unresponsive. Yet, the watch displayed, new map data received. Update complete. When Su Hao reopened the map, he discovered that it was no longer limited to a 10-kilometer radius. After assimilating the data from his phone, the watch now revealed a detailed national map, accurate down to the streets and alleys. One can also observe rudimentary map data for most countries around the globe, precise down to the roads. This is entirely sufficient. With this map, future endeavors will be immensely more convenient. Perhaps one day, military maps could be obtained, Su Hao pondered. Military maps are even more daunting, accurate to sources of water, terrain, materials, and so forth. However, it is premature to consider such matters now. He can revisit the thought another time. Su Hao tossed his phone into the system space and then began to rest with his eyes closed. At that moment, the person leaning beside him, Han Jiangxue, suddenly collapsed onto his shoulder. Su Hao glanced down, only able to see her flowing hair. Frankly speaking, there was little charm in the situation. Given the amount of sweat, it was commendable that there was no unpleasant odor. After observing the rhythmic rise and fall of Han Jiangxue's breathing, Su Hao chose to disregard the discomfort and continued to rest. Time passed, and at some point, Su Hao fell asleep only to awaken again. Glancing at his watch, he noted it was not yet 2 p.m. He had barely slept for an hour. The weight of Han Jiangxue on his shoulder had vanished, and she had shifted to resting on his lap. He considered taking a walk and gently lifted her head, placing it on the cushion before standing up. It was hardly gentlemanly to wait for her to wake before moving. After Su Hao rose to use the restroom, Han Jiangxue stirred awake, stretching languidly in the corner and opening her eyes to see Su Hao's silhouette departing. She inhaled deeply, closed her eyes, and reminisced about the midday skirmish, dismembered limbs, severed arms, carnage akin to chopping vegetables, blood and flesh flying amidst a brutal battle. To the average person, it might seem terrifying and grotesque, too harrowing to behold. In that moment, she had witnessed other members of the society retching and coughing incessantly. Yet for her, it was exhilarating. The act of striking was invigorating, an exquisite sight. How could Su Hao exhibit such strength during the slaughter, embodying a violent beauty that was utterly addictive? Han Jiangxue touched her lips. Then, as she gathered herself to rise, an unpleasant sensation of her skin sticking to the ground overtook her, making her feel exceedingly uncomfortable. She had perspired excessively, her skin becoming oily and clammy. This was unavoidable unless one could take a bath. However, now that the electricity was cut and the water supply ceased, finding a place with stored water for bathing was imperative. Han Jiangxue contemplated the school lake. It was the only option, but was it not too perilous? At that moment, Su Hao emerged from the restroom, a hint of despair evident in his demeanor. There was no water, and he couldn't wash his hands or wipe his body. He too had undoubtedly sweated. It was June. After all, after 2 days of perspiration, it was only natural to feel uncomfortable. Su Hao scratched his head, thinking that if this continued for another day, he would surely start to smell. Han Jiangxue nodded in agreement. A bath was indeed necessary, but with no water available, what could be done? Su Hao turned to Han Jiangxue and suggested, "Why don't we first raid the cafeteria's storage? It would be better to use mineral water to cleanse ourselves rather than remain sticky." Han Jiangxue noticed Su Hao's new watch but chose to remain silent. Instead, she proposed, "I have a plan, though it carries some risk." "What plan?" Su Hao inquired. "Let us first head to Ming Lake. while the water remains untainted. We can bathe in it. Su Hao pondered for a moment. I need to think. We need the mineral water for drinking. Bathing would waste it. The lake water should be safe. The school's lake, known as Ming Lake, is quite large and merely a few hundred meters from the sports building. It seems feasible. Task triggered. Bathing in Ming Lake. Task description. Bathing is one of the benchmarks of human civilization. Neglecting this practice can deteriorate one's physical state, potentially leading to illness and mental distress. Please clear the zombies near Ming Lake for a refreshing wash. Task reward. Infinite Divine Choice X1, Chapter 017. Journey to Ming Lake. 1v100. The advantage is mine. Can bathing even be a task? Su Hao began to grasp the conditions for triggering tasks, engaging with new experiences and meaningful endeavors. This realization prompted him to refrain from lingering in one spot and instead encouraged him to explore and move around during the apocalypse. It seemed he would need to form a convoy soon. What convoy? The goddess convoy sounds fitting. If I'm not afraid of being a bit cheesy, I could call it the war god convoy. All right, it's settled. We will go to Ming Lake. After confirming his decision, Su Hao glanced at the sky outside. It was 2 p.m., and the sun was just beginning to wane. There were no more than 6 hours until darkness fell. Should we clear Ming Lake and then bathe tomorrow? He thought, but quickly rejected the notion. I would feel uncomfortable for even a moment, let alone an entire night. Bathing in the dark? That's out of the question. The poor visibility would increase danger. I can only accept doing it at dusk. Hence, the action must occur now. Su Hao retrieved a large broadsword from his space and donned heavy armor, preparing to depart. Han Jiangxue, witnessing this, exclaimed, Are you really going to act now? Su Hao turned. If we wait until tomorrow, we'll be exposed to danger during the night. The opportunity is best right now. Which would you choose? Han Jiangxue considered his words, falling silent for a moment before picking up a machete. Then I will accompany you. Can you still hold up? He asked. I can manage to take down at most 15 zombies. All right, I'll handle the rest. With that, Su Hao turned and headed downstairs, with Han Jiangxue following closely behind. Upon descending, they found that the corpses had vanished from the main hall, but the blood on the floor remained uncleaned. Most of the people resting nearby had awakened and were now idly chatting or waiting in place. The back door of the sports building had been barricaded, and aside from a single glass door at the front, all other entrances had been blocked to prevent zombies from entering. Upon seeing Su Hao and Han Jiangxue descend, the onlookers turned their attention toward them. A sense of curiosity permeated the air as Su Hao, clad in heavy armor and towering nearly 2 meters, strode through the hall with a resounding thud, capturing the attention of all present, even more so than Han Jiangxue. Initially, the crowd watched with intrigue, but as Su Hao made his way towards the exit, they began to react. Brother, where are you headed? Wait a moment. What are you planning to do at this hour? Chun Jiu, having witnessed the scene, hurried over. Brother, where are you going? Can I come along? Su Hao paused, surveying the gathering before articulating his intentions. I plan to take advantage of the afternoon to clear the zombies around Ming Lake, then perhaps indulge in a bath. Is anyone interested? His words left the onlookers dumbfounded. In a world beset by the apocalypse, what was he thinking? To clear the zombies encircling Ming Lake merely for a bath? Although they too felt the oppressive discomfort of uncleanliness and yearned for a wash. Such a venture seemed perilously reckless. There were at least dozens, if not hundreds, of zombies in the vicinity. Was it truly worth risking one's life for a bath? Exchanging glances of incredulity, the crowd fell silent, pursing their lips, choosing to feign ignorance. Su Hao looked around at them, then turned to Chun Jiu with a smile. Are you still considering joining me? Chun Jiu stiffly shook his head, retreating a few steps. I don't think that's necessary. It's only been 3 days since my last wash. Given the apocalypse, one must learn to make do. He then noticed Han Jiangxue, who stood behind Su Hao, and suddenly realized, Are you going too, senior? Han Jiangxue nodded, brandishing her machete. Yes. Chun Jiu, incredulous, stepped back further, gazing at the pair as though they were mad. Observing his reluctance, Su Hao merely inclined his chin towards Han Jiangxue before turning to exit. The two soon vanished from sight, leaving the crowd to murmur amongst themselves. Madness. Are they truly risking their lives just for a bath? Perhaps they would indulge in a little more afterward. Shoo, don't say that out loud. What if they hear? Let them hear. What can they do to me? Other girls, overhearing the conversation, felt a mixture of envy, trepidation, and complexity as they chatted among friends. Oh, how I wish I could bathe. I feel so sticky. Do you think they will really manage it? Who knows? We'll see tonight. If they succeed, perhaps we can sneak over and try ourselves. But what if there are zombies? We'll just run back if there are. All right. Regardless of the opinions and gazes of others, Su Hao and Han Jiangxue had already embarked on their path. Shortly after stepping outside, they encountered a few scattered zombies. With a casual flick of his wrist, Su Hao dispatched them effortlessly, exerting little effort in the process. Han Jiangxue trailed closely behind, a mere step behind. She reflected on the glances exchanged among the crowd earlier. They seem to consider us quite mad, risking our lives merely for a bath. What do you think? Su Hao casually dispatched another zombie, no longer concerned with precision strikes to the neck. Instead, he opted for a brutal bisecting blow, leaving entrails scattered across the ground. Reminiscent of a bustling market stall selling offal. Han Jiangxue observed this raw display of violent aesthetics, her face gradually flushing with a natural hue, distinct from any cosmetic blush. Simultaneously, she instinctively pressed her lips together, a subtle action that seemed to suppress an inexpressible emotion within her. And she spoke the unvarnished truth. I find it exhilarating. After finishing off the zombie, Su Hao flicked the blade, splattering black blood onto a nearby signpost, the crimson streaks blooming against the backdrop of Ming Lake. Exhilaration indeed. After a brief walk, they arrived near Ming Lake. Before them, approximately 100 zombies wandered aimlessly around the plaza. Su Hao first ensured the water in Ming Lake remained pristine. Once confirmed, he turned his gaze towards the horde, a smile gracing his lips. There is something even more thrilling. To enjoy a peaceful bath, these zombies must be eliminated, otherwise, peace would be an elusive dream. As he certainly did not wish to be interrupted mid-bath by a pursuing zombie. With their objective clear, it was time to act. Su Hao glanced back at Han Jiangxue, revealing a roguish smile. Unlike his usual demeanor, he now exuded a palpable anticipation for battle and violence, his narrow eyes glinting with a dangerous light beneath his tousled hair. Han Jiangxue clenched her jaw, drawing her machete, and nodded resolutely. I will do my best to keep up with you. Good. Su Hao donned the last of his face armor, delicately affixing it to his helmet. Let the slaughter commence. With that, he raised his blade. The sound still echoing as he surged forward like an arrow released from its bow. The blade flashed like lightning, and flesh flew in all directions. Accompanied by the vivid tableau unfolding in Han Jiangxue's mind, Su Hao charged through the horde like a rampaging bulldozer, emanating a chilling aura. Embodying the fearless stance of a warrior as he began his massacre. 1 against 100, the advantage is mine. Chapter 018. Eradicating the zombies, bathing together, scrubbing each other's backs. With a strength of 90 and a physique of 84, Su Hao possessed the confidence of an elite athlete as he plunged into the throng of zombies clad in heavy armor. The zombies posed no threat. At worst contaminating his armor, he could always wash it later. One-on-one dueling is an art form, a dance of techniques exchanged. But the battlefield is different. It is a realm defined by brute force, experience, and endurance. Once engaged in the fray, the specifics of where to strike became inconsequential. The foremost priority is to strike first. Here, the battle experience gained from level 10 cold weapons instructs him that targeting the torso and head is essential. As long as the limbs are spared, any method of attack is permissible. Decapitate, bisect, decapitate, bisect. Amidst the relentless tide of zombies, Su Hao navigated with remarkable agility, each swing of his broad blade infused with formidable strength and resolute determination. In pursuit of a bath, and with the inevitability of cleansing himself, he reveled in the unique thrill brought forth by the violence, as if he were immersed in a brutal feast exclusively for him. Indeed. It became apparent that Han Jiangxue could hardly keep pace with Su Hao. He charged into the fray, sometimes swinging his blade too swiftly to account for threats from all directions. Confronted by an approaching zombie, he struck with an ironclad gauntlet. A single punch to the creature's chest, allowing him to continue his slaughter. However, Han Jiangxue was not so fortunate. She could only watch helplessly as Su Hao deftly maneuvered through the dense mass of zombies. The sight of his blade dancing through the air was merciless. The broadsword swept across the bodies of the undead, limbs flying as the zombies fell in rapid succession, their numbers dwindling at an astonishing rate. Meanwhile, she was relegated to the periphery, eliminating straggling zombies to prevent Su Hao from wasting time on trivial kills. Before long, the battle had raged for less than half an hour. Han Jiangxue was left breathless, her strength waning. The earlier skirmish had already drained her stamina, and another battle in the afternoon was proving taxing. She, being a woman, had already demonstrated remarkable resilience by enduring this far, surpassing the endurance of 99 of her peers. On Su Hao's end, he was nearing the conclusion of his own relentless assault. With the final sound of a decapitation echoing, he casually swung his blade, sending a zombie's head soaring, rolling on the ground with a thud. At last, all the zombies surrounding Ming Lake were vanquished. Surveying the surroundings revealed a gruesome scene. Nearly 100 bodies lay strewn about, grotesquely positioned with severed limbs and dismembered torsos, half bisected and half decapitated, an exaggerated tableau akin to the loss of 2 entire classes. With a sigh of relief, Su Hao exhaled deeply. After calming the turmoil within, he turned to check the time. It was 4 p.m. He then addressed Han Jiangxue. It's time for a bath. and since it's still early, we can indulge for quite a while. Han Jiangxue, still gasping for breath, felt utterly exhausted. Her smile in response to Su Hao was somewhat strained. I can hardly move, she admitted. The day's exertion had been the most taxing of her life. Any further activity might lead to muscle deterioration. Su Hao nodded, noting that Ming Lake lay just ahead, with the stairs not far off. After ensuring the vicinity was clear, he thought to himself, change attire. Suddenly, his heavy armor vanished, replaced by a casual short-sleeved shirt and shorts. He walked over to Han Jiangxue, wrapping his arms around her slender waist and pulling her closer. Let's go, he said. Han Jiangxue's cheeks flushed slightly as she leaned against him comfortably. Supporting her. He brought her to the steps of Ming Lake. Su Hao first focused his gaze on the lake, ensuring that the fish had not mutated before settling down with her on the steps. These steps extended into the water, originally meant for the swans of the school. But now those swans seemed to have vanished, perhaps devoured by zombies. Su Hao dipped his hands into the lake to wash them, scrubbing his arms. The cool water glided over his body, providing a refreshing relief after 2 days of sweating without a bath. Ah, refreshing. He sighed. He then jumped into the water, shedding his shirt and using a short-sleeved shirt to wash himself. Meanwhile, Han Jiangxue also began to scoop water with her hands. Upon witnessing Su Hao remove his shirt and leap into the lake, she found herself momentarily captivated, her hands pausing as her gaze remained fixed on him. The way boys observe girls' figures mirrors how girls examine boys. As she beheld Su Hao's well-defined muscles, chiseled like a sculptor's masterpiece, she instinctively bit her lip. Glancing at herself, she decided to wade into the water as well, half submerging herself. After a moment's hesitation, she looked around, confirming her solitude, and removed her top, leaving only her black bra. Su Hao was taken aback. He surveyed the surroundings again, and then glanced at Han Jiangxue's partially revealed form. Unable to discern her size, but clearly noting it was substantial, Han Jiangxue caught his gaze and smiled softly, playfully remarking, Su Hao inhaled sharply, surprised. The bathing proceeded normally thereafter. He used the short-sleeved shirt to scrub his entire body, but there was one spot he simply could not reach, his back. He strained to scrub around his shoulder blades, but to no avail, which left him quite uncomfortable. Han Jiangxue, watching him from the side, smiled softly. She approached him with her own shirt and said, let me help you, and you can return the favor later. All right, Su Hao replied. With his lower body in the lake and his upper body sprawled over the steps, Han Jiangxue dipped her shirt in the water and began to scrub his back. The motion was gentle, almost like a caress. Apply a bit more pressure, Jiangxue, he urged. Realizing her initial light touch, Han Jiangxue quickly adjusted her strength. At first, she had been too mesmerized by Su Hao's powerful physique, his broad back, and the defined muscles of his sides. They continued this way for a while, scrubbing away the layer of sweat and oil from his back, yet no mud appeared. The presence of mud indicates a long accumulation of oils mixed with fine dust, which was not the case here. All done, she announced. As Su Hao finished rubbing his back, he departed, allowing Han Jiangxue to take his place on the steps. It's my turn now, she softly remarked, nodding her head. Perhaps you should be gentle. Really? Su Hao replied with a smile. Being gentle would be peculiar. Had he not perused Han Jiangxue's detailed profile, he might have genuinely believed that women preferred a lighter touch. However, Han Jiangxue evidently favored a more vigorous approach. It was merely that her level of exploration was rather low. Perhaps she was even unaware of it herself. Thus, Su Hao took a short sleeve, dampened it, and began with gentle strokes, allowing her to acclimate and ease into the sensation. After feeling the initial pressure, Han Jiangxue exhaled. Yet an inexplicable sense of disappointment and monotony stirred within her. The next moment, Su Hao began to apply a bit more force while bathing her. For him, even the slightest increase in pressure was precisely at Han Jiangxue's threshold of endurance. In an instant, Han Jiangxue could not help but lift her head sharply, her swan-like neck arching gracefully, her toes curling beneath the water. Chapter 019. Han Jiangxue's loyalty. An unexpected shift in temperature as Su Hao continued to apply gentle pressure while bathing her. Han Jiangxue could no longer suppress her soft sounds of discomfort. All right, she exclaimed. And with that, Su Hao concluded the session with a playful slap. He then moved to the adjacent step, resting his hands upon it. Reclining as if indulging in a leisurely soak, Han Jiangxue lay beside him, her back flushed, breathing slightly heavier. Reflecting on the involuntary sounds that had escaped her lips, she found it increasingly difficult to maintain her composure. How could something so painful also bring a hint of pleasure? She turned her head slightly, casting her gaze towards Su Hao, who lay relaxed nearby. Her eyes shimmered with moisture and brilliance, reminiscent of a spring stream, flowing with boundless vitality. Once they had rested sufficiently, Han Jiangxue glanced around, realizing there was still ample time left. The two could indulge in their soak a while longer. alleviating the fatigue of the day. As she relaxed, memories of Su Hao's exhilarating battles on the battlefield flooded her mind. Suddenly, she recalled the blood splattered on his heavy armor during his encounters with zombies. If left unattended, that blood would eventually turn into unsightly stains, possibly even emitting an unpleasant odor. Thus, Han Jiangxue took the initiative to speak up. Su Hao, why don't you bring out your heavy armor? I'll clean it for you. Su Hao also remembered that the armor required maintenance. While it could go a while without care, the bloodstains necessitated prompt attention. The sooner, the better. His alloy armor was still in decent condition, but if it were made of other metals, prolonged exposure to blood could indeed degrade the armor. All right, I appreciate your help. With a snap of his fingers, Su Hao summoned the heavy armor, which materialized from the void, resting steadily on a platform just above the surface of the lake. It was evident that Han Jiangxue also had an affinity for such items. At the same time, she admired Su Hao's abilities even more. She gently caressed the surface of the heavy armor, scrutinizing it closely before beginning to dampen her clothing to cleanse the bloodstains from its surface. The entire process was executed with meticulous care. Every action and detail was attended to with precision and dedication. This earnestness did not go unnoticed by Su Hao, who found himself with the opportunity to observe Han Jiangxue in detail. Standing nearly 1.7 meters tall, she approached the average height of young men. Her long, lustrous black hair cascaded gracefully to her waist, moving with a rhythmic elegance that mirrored her every motion. Her delicate features framed a captivating visage. Her large eyes and alluring brows naturally exuded a mature and charming aura, embodying the essence of an alluring woman. Furthermore, her physique was nothing short of stunning. Not to mention her impressive bust, her waist was perfectly proportioned, not too thick, nor too slender, boasting a discernible line of abdominal definition that undeniably enhanced her figure. Her legs were long and powerful, radiating a unique charm whether she walked or stood. Overall, she epitomized the classic hourglass shape. With proportions that could only be described as flawless, every movement a display of enchanting grace. This senior was truly remarkable. As Han Jiangxue continued to wipe, she clearly sensed Su Hao's gaze upon her. Yet, she did not exhibit shyness. Instead, she subtly adjusted her posture to appear even more perfect, akin to how a man might showcase his physique. Moreover, Su Hao had the ability to view her detailed profile. Han Jiangxue, age, 21. Attributes, strength 67, constitution 66. Spirit 74, remaining unlocked. The average level for adults is 60, with a maximum of 100. The average for women is 50. Ability, cold weapon level 7. Loyalty, 86. 150 indicates no trust, fluctuates around 60 to 70. 70 to 80 is relatively stable. 80 to 90 is stable loyalty. 90 to 99 signifies blind trust, and 100 denotes absolute loyalty. Su Hao was surprised to find this panel indeed differed, as it included a loyalty rating. The previous scores of 199 aside, the distinction between 99 and 100 was particularly intriguing. There is a saying in certain circles, loyalty is not absolute. Absolute loyalty does not exist. Thus, the threshold from 99 to 100 represents a matter of absoluteness. This threshold's definition, Su Hao mused, might be tied to the self-preservation and devotion of life. Self-preservation is an instinct embedded in our genes. Those who can withstand this instinct through sheer willpower to commit their lives to a cause embody true loyalty. As for the rest, Han Jiangxue's physical attributes were equally impressive. With a strength of 67 and a constitution of 66. Her physical attributes were only slightly diminished compared to her condition prior to the apocalypse. For women, this was indeed a remarkable trait, as their average attributes typically lag behind those of men by 10 points. It was no surprise that she had excelled over the past 4 years, boasting a defined waistline, a testament to her hard work and innate talent. All cleaned up, came the voice of Han Jiangxue beside Su Hao. He glanced at his heavy armor, now devoid of any blood stains, polished to perfection, as pristine as if it had just emerged from the factory. Thank you, he nodded appreciatively, retracting the armor with a simple gesture. Han Jiangxue appeared somewhat regretful, lamenting the absence of armor polish, which would have provided a wax-like finish. That would be excessive, Su Hao chuckled, slightly exasperated. We'll be fighting zombies again tomorrow. It would be wasteful to do this every day. Indeed, as he checked the time, it was already past 5 in the afternoon, and it seemed their preparations were nearly complete. It was time to return for a meal. Rising to don his heavy armor, he noticed Han Jiangxue also standing up from the lake, putting her clothes back on. However, in the next moment, a sudden gust of wind swept through, creating a whirling sound in the air. This wind was unusual. The June weather had turned unexpectedly chilly, sending a shiver through him. Su Hao sensed something was amiss as he glanced at Han Jiangxue. She had just risen, startled by the cold wind, instinctively seeking refuge beside him for warmth. The wind persisted for several seconds, and upon looking down, he saw Han Jiangxiu trembling slightly in his embrace. "Let us get you back in the water," he said, gently guiding her back into the lake where she could crouch, with only her neck above the surface. The water remained warm, and she immediately felt much better. "How can it be so cold in June?" Han Jiangxiu questioned, her damp hair tousled by the wind. Su Hao shook his head, uncertain but speculating that there must have been significant changes in geography, atmosphere, or oceanic conditions, perhaps even a combination of all three. Jiangxing was not far from the coast, and the provincial capital was a seaside city. This alteration had heightened his sense of unease and an impending sense of crisis. Such an anomalous chill in the air indicated that something was not right. If things were normal, this strange cold wind would not exist. With that in mind, preparation for the unforeseen became imperative. Eventually, the cold wind subsided after a full half-minute. Su Hao and Han Jiangxiu stood up from the lake, donning their clothes and armor anew. "Let us head back and prepare for tomorrow's plans," he urged. Han Jiangxiu had little to say in response. "I'll follow you." On their way back, they encountered few zombies, though the ground was littered with corpses, most of which had fallen to Su Hao's blade. As I made my way back to the sports building, I casually dispatched a few zombies along the route. Upon my return, I discovered a gathering in the lobby where the others were engaged in animated discussions. The clock approached 6 p.m. The sun had dipped below the horizon, casting a dusky orange hue across the campus, enveloping the world in a soft twilight. However, the recent chill in the air brought a starkly contrasting sensation. Upon seeing Su Hao and Han Jiangxiu return, reactions varied. Some expressed relief, others curiosity, and a few wore enigmatic smiles, a medley of expressions filling the room. Su Hao found little interest in analyzing the crowd's demeanor, as he planned to depart in just a few days. As soon as he stepped into the lobby, Chun Jiu hurried over, exclaiming, "Brother, did you encounter that fierce gust outside? It was so strong and chilling," whistling as it swept in. The others chimed in, voices overlapping. "It's freezing, but it's June. Why is it so cold? Will the cold winds of June herald July's snow? What is happening? Is the apocalypse causing a shift in temperature, and will geography change as well?" Speculations flew around, yet they were largely baseless guesses. For Su Hao, such musings were devoid of value and merely an emotional drain. What truly mattered was devising strategies to cope with the situation rather than relying on conjecture. Should atmospheric changes lead to global cooling, one would need to stockpile fuel and food, seeking habitable locations such as underground facilities or geothermal springs. If the oceans were to alter, causing sea levels to rise, then Jiangsheng would become untenable, necessitating a swift scavenging of resources and provisions to ascend to higher altitudes. In the event of geological disturbances, such as earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, or deep sinkholes, one must avoid tectonic zones and opt for stable routes, steering clear of mountainous terrain. In essence, mere contemplation without action is futile. Preparation and foresight are imperative. This reasoning underscored Su Hao's reluctance to squander time within the confines of the school. Observing the ongoing speculation, Su Hao clapped his hands together, prompting a sudden hush among the crowd. All eyes turned toward him. Among the throng, the majority respected him, not only for his equipment but also for his prowess. Yet, a few harbored disdainful glances, unwilling to submit to his authority, though none dared to confront him openly. With the room now quiet, Su Hao commenced addressing the pressing matters at hand. "Since you have formed a group, it is essential to establish a unified direction for your team. How much food, resources, and weaponry remain on campus? What is the status of the students and faculty? Are we fortifying the school's defenses or seeking official rescue? Who among you is preparing for the next steps?" The group fell silent, lips pressed together, unable to respond. The apocalypse had manifested the day before yesterday, marking today as merely the third day of this new reality. They were all in a state of confusion, instinctively clustering together. Yet, once united, what was to be done? No one was willing to step forward. No one had the capacity to do so, nor the strength to inspire confidence. Prior to Su Hao's arrival, only Han Jiangxiu could be considered a semblance of a team organizer. A proficient team organizer or leader is a rare find among contemporary students. If there were a mentor present, organization might be feasible, but that does not guarantee effective leadership. Observing the silence among the crowd, Su Hao continued, "Since there is no one, I shall outline a tentative plan. You may choose to heed it or disregard it. I am indifferent. However, I shall resolutely execute it myself. As for you, do as you please. It is of no concern to me." Upon hearing this, several individuals rose to their feet. "If there is nothing to be done, then speak up, brother. Even if we cannot fight zombies, we can lend a hand. Brother, we are girls. We truly cannot engage in combat with zombies. By the way, brother, can we still take a bath in Minghu?" Su Hao, feeling helpless, exchanged a glance with Han Jiangxue, who offered him a knowing look. As if to say she had anticipated this outcome. There was little to be done. The vast majority of people in this world were mere NPCs, ordinary individuals. Shaking his head in resignation, Su Hao stated, "The preliminary plan is to assess the situation at the school. We shall gradually scour the buildings surrounding the sports complex, starting with the nearby art building, as well as the education building and dormitories of the medical school. If we find food, we will bring it back for storage. If there are individuals in need of rescue, we shall assist them. If not, then so be it. This constitutes our first step. Is there anyone willing to participate?" As he surveyed the room, he noticed that everyone shrank back, reluctant to step forward. After scanning the group, he found no one willing to volunteer. A few hesitated, but upon recalling the individuals they had locked away at noon and wondering whether they had mutated, coupled with the fatigue they felt from the day's exertions, they too retreated. Ordinary people, as a species, possess remarkable resilience. They typically do not push back until they reach their limits. With only the third day of the apocalypse upon them, the group's mindset remained stable, and they had not yet succumbed to despair. Food and water were abundant, and there was no scarcity. With the presence of others, their spirits remained high. Under such circumstances, few were inclined to venture out and fight unless, like at noon, they found themselves cornered with no option left. Moreover, those few who did step forward to strive would likely feel it unjust to bear the burden alone. Why should they be the ones to fight, while others cowered? Everyone should share equally in sustenance. Why should some be allowed to remain idle? The fear of unfairness outweighed the fear of scarcity. When effort and inaction yield the same result, what incentive is there to risk one's life for effort? Thus, overall, under various circumstances, retreating seemed far more appealing than risking everything in a desperate struggle. Su Hao looked at the crowd, comprehending their sentiments. There was neither a breach of defenses nor blame, and certainly no wrathful outburst. This was, after all, within the realm of his expectations. His plan was that he would undertake the vast majority of the tasks involving the elimination of zombies, while others could merely scavenge the remnants. Even if they chose not to participate now, it would not significantly affect Su Hao. With that, he bid good night to everyone, indicating his intent to retire to his room. Han Jiangxue did not spare a glance at the others and followed Su Hao upstairs without hesitation. On the staircase, Han Jiangxue took Su Hao's hand and declared with certainty, "Tomorrow, I will accompany you." Su Hao regarded her with a hint of concern. "Will you have recovered by tomorrow?" Han Jiangxue was unlike the others. Her exertion today had far exceeded that of the group below. She estimated, "It should be fine. I even took a bath this afternoon." "Very well," Su Hao nodded. Preparing to find a room, Han Jiangxue, puzzled by his actions, inquired, "Is it absolutely necessary to find a room to sleep?" Su Hao replied candidly, "I do not trust them." He had no desire to be ambushed in his sleep. What if there were ill-intentioned individuals among them? Would he risk his life on such a gamble? Hearing this, Han Jiangxue bit her lip, then looked at Su Hao and asked after a moment, "If that is the case for you, then I am in a similar position. How about we share a room?" This was the first time Su Hao had encountered such a request. His instinct was to decline initially. However, upon witnessing Han Jiangxue's unwavering loyalty, he eventually nodded. "I trust you. Let us proceed." All right. A score of 70 to 80 indicated relative stability, while 80 to 90 denoted steadfast loyalty. Anyone below 80 would be swiftly dismissed, as they likely harbored malicious intent. Yet, a score above 80, particularly 86, could be deemed trustworthy. If he were to outright refuse now, it would imply a lack of trust in Han Jiangxue, potentially jeopardizing her loyalty. Chapter 021, Super Dynamic Vision, Han Jiangxue with a fever that night. After indulging in food and drink, before entering his room, Su Hao began his customary review of his tasks. Task: bathing in Ming Hu. Completed. Task: slaughtering 1,000 zombies. 458-1000. Task: sweeping through Jiang University. Incomplete. Task: investigating the school's art district. Sports Building 11, Art Building 01. Task: assembling the goddess team. Ongoing. The bathing in Ming Hu had just been completed. The slaughter of 1,000 zombies was considered an achievement. The tasks of sweeping through Jiang University and investigating the school area were nearing completion and could be accomplished within a few days. The goddess team task was of a permanent nature. Thus, he found himself with one opportunity for an unlimited divine level selection reward remaining. Utilizing the reward claimed. Please select one from the following three options. Option 1, 100 tons of canned yellow peaches. Reward 2, ability of mimicry throat. Reward 3, ability of super dynamic vision abilities. Should I opt for both? Does this hint at the impending era of extraordinary powers? Su Hao promptly dismissed Reward 1. No matter how delectable canned peaches may be, they pale in comparison to extraordinary abilities, unless they are extraterrestrial or sci-fi cuisine. Next, He examined reward 2 for further details. Mimicry throat. Through evolution, your throat can produce any similar sound, including but not limited to imitating various ages, vocal tones, gender voices, animal sounds, object noises, and artificial sounds. When evolved to its zenith, it can emit a special sound wave capable of piercing eardrums, inflicting mental harm upon those nearby, indiscriminately affecting friend and foe alike. Upon encountering this ability, Su Hao wore a puzzled expression. If one were to grade abilities, he felt this one would barely qualify as D-grade, considering its potential for area mental damage. Yet, its indiscriminate nature raises concerns. Is the strategy to lie in wait and unleash area of effect damage amidst the enemy? Pass. On to the next. Super dynamic vision. Slightly increases daily mental consumption, but enhances your perception of dynamic objects. Any moving entity within your field of vision will immediately capture your attention. When this ability reaches a formidable level, with utmost concentration, you can enter a state of bullet time. Bullet time state. Everything occurring within your field of vision slows down, while the real-world speed remains unchanged. However, this will consume a significant amount of your energy, and exhaustion may lead to fainting. Intriguing. Su Hao was familiar with the concept of bullet time. It accelerates the transmission and processing speed of neural reactions. In everyday situations, this means an enhanced ability to detect moving objects, noticing even the slightest rustle of grass or leaves. When maximized, the perception of reality slows down for the individual, while others remain unaware of any change. In moments of crisis, some ordinary people can subconsciously activate this ability, albeit only briefly, providing substantial assistance. For Su Hao, the greatest enhancement lies in combat reflexes, intuition, and perception. Thus, the choice of reward is unequivocal. I select reward 3. Rewards have been granted. In the next instant, Su Hao distinctly felt as if his eyes were enveloped by a gentle stream. A refreshing sensation that penetrated beyond the surface of his eyeballs, reaching deep within, infusing his mind with an extraordinary feeling. But that was not the end. This refreshing sensation originated from the depths of his eyes, traveling along the invisible pathway of the optic nerve, smoothly spreading until it reached a specific region deep within his brain, cleansing everything in its wake with that unique coolness. This sensation was simply marvelous and immensely pleasurable. As the coolness slowly dissipated, Su Hao opened his eyes and surveyed his surroundings. He did not need to exert much effort. As long as something within his line of sight moved, a key, a leaf, a textbook, or the corner of a garment, his consciousness would immediately be drawn to it. Akin to an instinctual response, it was no wonder that his mental expenditure seemed to increase on a daily basis. Su Hao blinked, having acclimated to the sensation. It appeared that he would need to focus on enhancing his mental acuity henceforth, for he aspired to become a well-rounded warrior. After finishing dinner, Su Hao found a room with a lockable door near the window for some rest. Han Jiangxue entered, wielding a machete, and chose a corner to settle. With a simple gesture, Su Hao summoned a soft cushion, which he had previously dismantled from the cafeteria. The cushion materialized in the corner, accompanied by a ripple in the space around it. A gentle breeze carried away some dust, and in that moment, Su Hao noticed even the tiniest particles. Han Jiangxue, intrigued by the spectacle, asked if all of this had been prearranged. What else resides within your spatial realm? She inquired with curiosity. Nothing much. Su Hao replied as he took a seat and unscrewed a bottle of iced tea, savoring a sip. I escaped from the cafeteria, but at the time, I lacked abilities and didn't bring much with me. When the opportunity arises, we shall return to scavenge before leaving the school. Han Jiangxue leaned her machete against the wall and joined Su Hao, tucking her long, slender legs beneath her, cradling her legs with her arms. She rested her chin on her knees, gazing at him. How vast is your space? Upon hearing such a detail-oriented question, Su Hao responded with a mysterious smile. Are you certain you wish to know? Understanding such intricacies means you must either remain by my side indefinitely or face dire consequences. Han Jiangxue tilted her head, unwavering in her resolve, and nodded earnestly. Please, enlighten me. In response, Su Hao gently ruffled her hair. Han Jiangxue squinted slightly, feeling a normal reaction. But then he let his hand glide down to her neck, lightly grasping it. Instantly, Han Jiangxue's eyes widened in surprise, and her demeanor shifted as she began to sway slightly. Noticing her reaction, Su Hao realized he had struck the right chord. He began to speak slowly. My temporary space is about the size of this room, which means our plan extends beyond merely seeking talent. We must venture out to stockpile resources, everything useful. You may interpret it as looting or scavenging. The terminology matters little. This is also one of the reasons I am inclined to form a small group. In this apocalyptic world, a lone wolf stands a greater chance of demise. The solitude becomes unbearable, and with more individuals congregating, resources become scarce. leading to various intrigues and rivalries. Thus, a small collective is the most prudent choice. With ample supplies, I am confident I can cultivate a sanctuary uniquely my own, a veritable Eden or a utopian haven. As Han Jiangxue listened to Su Hao's words, she quietly fidgeted and responded softly. Su Hao's large hand unconsciously brushed against her. When he regained his senses, he noticed that Han Jiangxue was blushing profusely. Her ears, cheeks, hands, legs, and even her toes were all a delicate pink. Su Hao quickly withdrew his hand, initially thinking that she had caught a chill from bathing in the afternoon and was now running a fever. He reached out to touch her forehead, checking for a fever. It was warm, but not in the range of a high fever. "Are you cold?" Su Hao asked. Han Jiangxue shook her head, replying, "I'm hot." As soon as the words left her lips, Su Hao met her gaze. In that fleeting moment, he beheld the depths of her eyes, sparkling like a bowl of spring water, shimmering with an alluring light that seemed to harbor boundless affection. It dawned on him that she indeed felt unwell, but it was not a high fever. He had not anticipated that the XP he had found would resonate so profoundly with Han Jiangxue's heart. Given the circumstances, there was no point in remaining reserved. To refuse would only seem unromantic. The door had long been locked. With a snap of his fingers, Su Hao instantly shed his heavy armor, and in the next moment, he collided with Han Jiangxue, both tumbling onto the soft mat that had already been prepared. The next day, on the fourth day of the apocalypse, at 9 a.m., Su Hao accompanied the somewhat awkwardly walking Han Jiangxue to the art building near the sports hall to assess the situation. The occupants of the sports hall remained largely indifferent, content to protect their small territory, a decision made the previous day. Clad in heavy armor, Su Hao proceeded towards the art building, which was situated on the side of Ming Lake, with about a third of the path already cleared. Before reaching the first third of the path, he glanced back at Han Jiangxue, who held a machete. "You can watch from nearby, there aren't many zombies. Take a good rest today," he advised. He had initially not wanted Han Jiangxue to come. Having exerted herself all day yesterday and staying up late, he was uncertain when she had finally slept. This morning, Han Jiangxue had remarked that her bones felt soft, her entire being felt transparent, and she experienced aches in her legs and abdomen. Yet, she insisted on coming along, stating that remaining in the sports hall held no meaning for her, even if it meant just slaying a few zombies alongside Su Hao. It was far better than languishing in the sports hall. It was evident what her personality and thoughts were like. Su Hao acquiesced. After all, having her along was not burdensome. He also took the opportunity to assess her loyalty. After a night had passed, he noted, loyalty, 8,689. It was clear that Han Jiangxue was sincere. Winning her heart was paramount. Although their intimacy had increased, it had yet to reach the threshold of unthinking trust at 90. Just a step away, Su Hao could roughly deduce the situation at hand. It was undoubtedly related to the liberation and acceptance of Han Jiangxue's latent violent tendencies. Han Jiangxue was keenly aware of her own limitations. As long as she did not trouble Su Hao, that would suffice. She found great satisfaction in witnessing Su Hao's ferocious slaughter of the zombies, relishing the sight of limbs flying through the air, a thrilling spectacle that stimulated her senses. The duo continued their journey towards the art building, traversing the streets that had been cleared the previous day. Before long, they encountered a cluster of over a dozen zombies. Su Hao glanced at his extermination task. Mission: slay 1,000 zombies. 458-1000. After 2 days of relentless effort, he had successfully dispatched nearly half, with the completion of the task now within reach. Without further ado, he brandished his great sword and approached the first zombie. This particular creature was clearly infected. It bore a grotesque appearance, with one eye and half of its skull gnawed away, exposing disordered brain tissue that swayed precariously within the shattered cranium, as if it might fall out at any moment. Upon closer inspection, one could discern unknown worms writhing within, alongside peculiar greenish-purple fungi thriving in the decayed matter. Those with a weak stomach would likely retch upon witnessing such a sight. Although Su Hao found it repulsive, he felt more discomfort in his eyes than anything else. He raised his blade and struck. With a sickening squelch, the head flew off, and the corpse collapsed with a thud, creating quite a commotion. The surrounding zombies stumbled toward him, but to his surprise, he soon realized that their speed had significantly increased. Not just one or two, but all of them had quickened their pace. Su Hao turned to Han Jiangxue, locking eyes with her. They both nodded in acknowledgement of the anomaly. Were these zombies not merely the result of failed evolution, but rather undergoing a malignant progression? Triggered mission: have the zombies evolved? Mission description: you have observed that the zombies today move with a distinctly different speed than those from yesterday. Is this a malignant evolution, or is there another reason? Feel free to speculate and analyze, employing any means necessary. Mission reward: 1 infinite God-level choice. As Su Hao watched several zombies sprinting toward him, he swiftly dispatched them all with precise strikes. The disparity in his strength rendered their newfound speed utterly futile, each one falling with a single blow. However, the task did not end there. Su Hao sought out a complete, naturally mutated corpse, preparing to commence his dissection for research. Triggered mission: have the zombies evolved? Su Hao was certain that the zombies had indeed evolved. If certain zombies exhibit swiftness, it may be attributed to their prior affinity for physical activity or superior physical condition in life. However, today, a significant number of zombies have displayed an increase in speed, indicating a collective transformation rather than isolated incidents. Su Hao, armed with a knife, prepared to conduct a dissection of a slaughter-level nature. Han Jiangxue approached, her curiosity piqued. Are you intending to study why they have evolved? Indeed, Su Hao replied, surveying his surroundings to ensure safety before proceeding. To know oneself and one's adversary is the key to victory in every battle. I must at least ascertain the general reasons behind this. Han Jiangxue, though feeling a twinge of revulsion, did not retreat. Instead, she covered her mouth and nose, observing intently while occasionally scanning the area to confirm their safety. With the knife poised, Su Hao sliced from the center of the collarbone down to the lower abdomen in one swift motion. There was no sound. The fabric, flesh, and bone parted simultaneously, revealing the chest cavity without the anticipated noxious odor. Instead, a peculiar assortment of internal organs met their eyes, devoid of any stench of decay. Su Hao remarked in surprise, "It's been 4 days since June. These living zombies emit no foul odor, only the deceased do. Does this imply that zombies are not truly dead, but rather exist in a different state of being?" Han Jiangxue concurred, "It seems so." At that moment, as Su Hao completed his analysis, a notification regarding task progress resonated in his mind. A progress bar? How convenient. He scrutinized the internal organs. They appeared not to be decomposing, but rather fusing together, forming a cohesive mass, as if they were merging. The surface of the organs was not adorned with capillaries, but bore a greenish-purple web-like pattern reminiscent of mold. "What is this?" Su Hao queried, using his knife to sever a segment of the greenish-purple filaments. The area that was cut appeared to swell like a fluffy mushroom. Yet it quickly withered into a desiccated state, resembling a dried husk. This process was alarmingly rapid. Within moments, the entire chest cavity's contents shrank visibly, while the muscle tissue remained largely unchanged. "What is this?" Su Hao then directed his attention to the head, applying slight pressure to perform a cranial surgery. Upon opening the skull, he discovered that the surface of the brain was similarly adorned with the greenish-purple patterns. Su Hao and Han Jiangxue exchanged glances as he proceeded to slice into the brain tissue. Just like the internal organs, it withered at an astonishing rate, taking on the appearance of vacuum-dried matter. "This no longer resembles animal organs," Su Hao mused, frowning. "It feels more akin to mutated plant life." As soon as Su Hao articulated his new hypothesis, the resolution surged significantly, indicating that they were nearing the answer. Chapter 023, The Surrounded Art Building. En route to the medical school, the proximity to the solution was evident, as was the connection to the flora. Yet, discrepancies remained in the unknown realms. Su Hao surveyed the other corpses, realizing that a single sample was insufficient. He proceeded to replicate his earlier actions on the other 2 zombies, yielding results akin to the first. Each displayed greenish-purple patterns. Virus? Bacteria? Toxins? Su Hao entertained numerous possibilities, all leading to similar conclusions. Once the resolution stabilized at 50, it ceased to rise, lacking critical evidence. Aliens? UFOs? Fast food chains? After a fruitless attempt to elevate the resolution, Su Hao decided to abandon the endeavor. "Let us set this aside for now and proceed to the art building," he suggested. Han Jiangxue concurred, adding, "I believe it would be prudent to locate a mentor-level figure from the medical school for more accurate verification." Su Hao agreed, wiping his blade clean before stepping over the corpses as they advanced toward the art building. The journey was fraught with numerous zombies. In the span of a few hundred meters, he encountered over 30 more before drawing near to the vicinity of the art building. However, they halted their approach, deterred by the overwhelming number of zombies. A cursory glance revealed no fewer than 300 zombies in the plaza before the art building, with at least 200 densely packed inside the hall. Gazing through the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th floors, it became evident that each level and classroom harbored a considerable number of zombies. Thus, the vicinity of the art building alone contained upwards of 1,000 zombies. How could there be so many? Su Hao turned to Han Jiangxue. Was there a major art class before the apocalypse? Han Jiangxue pondered briefly before shaking her head. "I'm not entirely sure, but I've heard there was an art assessment." Su Hao sighed in resignation. "In that case, we're in quite a predicament. It appears that a significant portion of the art students in the school are congregated here. Perhaps there are others from different faculties as well. This diminishes the value of exploration." He shook his head, deciding against proceeding further. Glancing at his watch confirmed his suspicions. The previously marked zombie density outside the building now enveloped the entire structure in a deep crimson hue, indicating an exceedingly high concentration. However, his primary concern lay with the task at hand. System task: investigate the school's art district, sports building, and art building. The sports building has become a temporary gathering point, while the art building is teeming with zombies. Task completed. The rewards have been distributed. Excellent, with one draw. Fortunately, the task is merely an investigation rather than a cleanup. Otherwise, it would take Su Hao several days to eliminate over 1,000 zombies, which would be a great waste of time. The mission involves slaying zombies, and the most effective strategy is to eliminate them incidentally while undertaking other tasks, rather than dedicating time solely to the act of slaughtering zombies. Su Hao possesses ample experience in task execution. Han Jiangxue glanced at the horde of zombies and decisively shook her head. She turned to Su Hao, inquiring about the next plan. Should they seek out the people from the medical school? Su Hao pondered briefly. Are there any instructors or professors conducting classes at the medical school and its dormitories recently? Han Jiangxue responded with conviction. The medical school dormitory is quite distant, and there likely won't be any instructors present. However, the issue remains, what shall we do about the multitude of zombies within the medical school? Su Hao examined the system's map function and located the teaching building of the medical school on the map. There were indeed zombies surrounding the outer perimeter of the medical school. However, the density was marked in a moderate red, indicating that the number of zombies was neither too sparse nor too abundant. If they were present, it wouldn't be overly challenging to clear them out. Let us proceed to the medical school's teaching building, Su Hao declared, leading the way. Han Jiangxue followed closely with her machete, surveying the campus surroundings. Upon noticing the cafeteria in another district filled with zombies in the distance, an idea struck her. She turned to Su Hao. Before we leave, should we not empty the cafeteria? There should be a considerable amount of food there. Su Hao nodded and then shook his head. It is possible, but not worthwhile. The cost-to-benefit ratio is too low. Why? Han Jiangxue asked, perplexed. The cafeteria's cold storage is not large, given that the apocalypse has lasted for 4 days. The meat without refrigeration is likely spoiled, and only a few vegetables remain untainted. Moreover, the back kitchen of the cafeteria receives frequent shipments, resulting in minimal stockpiling. Su Hao waved his hand in explanation. Considering these factors, along with the number of zombies in the cafeteria, the investment does not justify the returns. The cost-effectiveness is simply too low. Do you realize that when I fought my way out from the top floor of the Southern District cafeteria, I encountered nearly 300 zombies before escaping, without even clearing the ground floor, which had the highest concentration? For Su Hao, the operational strategy in this apocalyptic setting hinges on efficiency and cost-effectiveness. Evaluating the density of zombies in the school cafeteria alongside its stock levels raises the question, how long would it take to slay that many zombies? And what supplies would be obtained? Is this truly profitable? Given the time available, would it not be more advantageous to scour a convenience store instead? The primary difference between the end of days in Dongda and in America lies not in the presence or absence of firearms, but rather in the density of zombies. The school, in particular, ranks among the highest in terms of zombie density. For days have passed, and only a few dozen survivors have gathered in the sports building. It is likely that out of the tens of thousands of faculty and students within the entire school, fewer than 1,000 remain alive. It can be described as a hellish beginning. Han Jiangxue is astute. She grasped the situation immediately. While it is indeed feasible to raid the cafeteria, it is not worth the effort. Investing time and energy outside the campus to pursue other objectives is a far more prudent choice, an exceedingly simple rationale. She gasped, her lips parting in astonishment. 300? You need to slay 300 zombies to emerge victorious? This is utterly absurd, though she had dispatched her fair share, amounting to several dozen, which she deemed considerable. It paled in comparison to 300, an incomprehensible figure. This was merely the count at that time. Considering the additional number slain since her acquaintance with Su Hao, Han Jiangxue speculated, perhaps it has approached 500. It was indeed outrageous, far too exaggerated. The thought of Su Hao's ferocity made her instinctively clasp her legs together. Yet, as Han Jiangxue calculated, she wondered, once we thoroughly explore the medical school, shall we depart from the campus? Indeed, Su Hao affirmed, suddenly recalling something important. By the way, do you have a vehicle at school? No. All my cars are at home, Han Jiangxue replied, realizing, are we planning to drive out of the campus? It may be possible, but only with an electric vehicle. Han Jiangxue instantly grasped the implication. Gasoline vehicles are equipped with engines, which inevitably attract zombies due to noise during transit, unless one maintains a constant speed. Gasoline cars are inherently disadvantaged in an apocalypse, their noise being unavoidable, though they do possess the advantage of refueling. In contrast, electric cars can operate quietly at lower speeds, allowing them to evade detection until the zombies react too late. However, there are drawbacks, such as the need for recharging. Nonetheless, considering the refueling of gasoline vehicles, Su Hao had ample resources in his system space. Electric vehicles, however, face challenges with limited range and the cumbersome nature of recharging. Was there a way to achieve the best of both worlds? Su Hao pondered for a moment before a realization struck him. Yes, there is. Range-extended electric vehicles. Chapter 024, Exclusive Automotive Mission, Slaughter in the Medical Building. Range-extended electric vehicles, also known as plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, are equipped with a small battery for short-distance travel, typically offering a range of 50 to 200 kilometers. Additionally, they possess a fuel tank and a generator for electricity production. While this method of generating power does produce noise, it is significantly quieter than that of traditional engines and exhaust systems, making it entirely sufficient. Mission triggered. Acquire a range-extended electric vehicle. Mission description. You are well aware that without a mode of transportation, the effective range of human mobility is limited to merely 30 to 50 kilometers per day. With an electric scooter, this can be increased to 100 to 200 kilometers, and with a car, the distance can soar to several hundred, even exceeding 1,000 kilometers. Therefore, considering all factors, please acquire a range-extended electric vehicle by any means necessary. Mission reward. One-time infinite God-tier selection for automobiles. The moment he glimpsed the reward, Su Hao scrutinized it closely and confirmed it was indeed a special version, automobile-themed rewards. This meant that all rewards obtained this time would pertain solely to vehicles, and the methods of acquisition were unrestricted. Utilizing any method available, the task was rendered quite simple. Su Hao nodded in agreement. After all, with the world in ruins, vehicles were plentiful. Locating a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle would pose no challenge. After reviewing the rewards, Su Hao, accompanied by Han Jiangxue, battled their way to the vicinity of the medical building. The map on his watch indicated that the number of zombies in the area was neither excessive nor sparse, just right, as it appeared. Moreover, there was a piece of good news. Su Hao, the main entrance of the medical building is blocked. Han Jiangxue pointed towards the entrance. Su Hao glanced over and nodded in affirmation. Indeed, this entrance is obstructed. This was in stark contrast to the art building, where the doors stood wide open. An open entrance suggested that the interior was clear, with perhaps only a few classrooms still putting up resistance. Conversely, the blocked entrance of the medical building indicated the presence of defending forces within. As for the reason behind such a disparity, aside from the number of zombies, it was possible that the medical faculty had encountered more corpses and had engaged in combat more frequently, thus emboldening them to confront the undead. Su Hao rose to survey the other levels of the medical building. The first floor was devoid of anything noteworthy due to the blocked entrance. On the second floor, he spotted people. There were individuals in classrooms and others in the corridors. The third floor revealed no zombies, save for a few that were confined within classrooms. The fourth and final floor showcased several individuals gazing around. At that moment, the people on the fourth floor noticed Su Hao and Han Jiangxue. It was evident that they were taken aback, then quickly stood up and began waving vigorously. A few of them clapped their hands and gestured, leaving only one person behind, while the others hurried downstairs to find more individuals. In no time, within just a few minutes, Su Hao observed an influx of people ascending. This group comprised both men and women, including students and seemingly some instructors. Upon spotting Su Hao, they too began to wave, albeit without shouting. Su Hao returned the gesture and then directed his gaze downward, indicating the horde of zombies on the first floor. Outside the medical building, there were approximately 200 zombies, not too many, yet not too few. It was just the right amount. Thus, under the watchful eyes of the gathering crowd, Su Hao unsheathed his blade. In the midst of their confusion, he pointed towards the horde of zombies on the first floor. On the rooftop, the others were bewildered. What did this mean? Why was he brandishing a knife towards the zombie horde? They were perplexed, given that the distance between them was several hundred meters. Not only could they not shout, but even lip-reading was futile. Su Hao could not afford to elaborate. He opted instead for action to convey his intent. Gripping his knife, he glanced back at Han Jiangxue and advised, "Just assist from the periphery." Han Jiangxue, clutching her spear, nodded in understanding. While the others remained uncertain about Su Hao's intentions, Han Jiangxue had already grasped the concept. The thought of the ensuing scene filled her mind. Han Jiangxue's complexion turned crimson, her capillaries brimming with a stimulating essence that quickened her heartbeat and hastened her breath. After Su Hao spoke, he turned and strode towards the medical building. Clad in heavy armor, his steps echoing. Atop the building, the onlookers noticed Su Hao's approach and began to grasp the gravity of the situation. Could he possibly be coming to attack? Was that feasible? Outside, there were over 200 zombies. They urged one another to abandon their perch and investigate the first floor. Clad in such formidable armor, he had managed to reach the medical building. What if he were a warrior capable of slicing through foes like vegetables? Outside, there were 200. 200. Did they think they were merely facing a couple of harmless creatures? Nevertheless, the crowd descended en masse to the first floor to assess the situation. This was only the contingent capable of movement. Many others, famished and weak, remained seated in the classrooms on the ground floor, conserving their strength. Suddenly, a student burst through the classroom door, startling everyone, who initially feared it was a zombie. Upon realizing it was a fellow student, they exhaled in relief. However, the words that followed sent a wave of trepidation through the group. Two strange individuals have arrived outside. One wears full armor and wields a sword, resembling an ancient general, while the other appears to be Senior Han Jiangxue, brandishing a machete. And they are making their way towards us. At this revelation, the crowd fell silent. Just two individuals? Yes, what could two people accomplish against over 200 zombies? Yet, they had managed to reach this point, having likely dispatched countless undead along the way. Well, we should take a look. This may be our only chance. What else can we do? Someone suggested. Indeed, if we endure another day of hunger, we may be forced to find a way to break out. The medical building was unlike the others. It lacked a convenience store, and there was no food or even water available. After several days, the scant provisions the students had managed to save were long gone. Nearly everyone present had been hungry for 2 days. At that moment, the group turned their gaze to a woman in the corner. Her lips were cracked from thirst, her head spun from hunger, and her consciousness was fading. Seeing this, a female student hurriedly approached her. Sister Suqing, awaken. Someone has come to rescue us. We must break free by today at the latest. You must follow us. The woman addressed as Suqing slowly shook her head, her voice faint and hoarse. I can't move any longer. You should go on without me. The group paused. Some female classmates, even with reddened eyes. Suqing was their senior, pursuing both her Master's and doctorate, while also serving as a mentor. Throughout these past few days, she had shared most of her food with her juniors, sustaining herself on just enough to maintain her vital signs. After so many days of hunger, she had become too weak to walk. The lack of water and energy caused her brain to automatically reduce its energy consumption, leading to a hazy consciousness. Do not cry. Some of the female classmates covered their eyes. A somber atmosphere enveloped those around them. Suddenly, another person burst in, urgently shouting, if you still have strength, grab your weapons and help. That general is incredibly formidable. He has already slain dozens of zombies. We must assist him. Chapter 025. Exterminate the zombies of the medical school. The new standard goddess Suqing with the newcomer's call. Everyone snapped back to reality and hurried outside. Some wielded metal tools. Others brandished makeshift wooden sticks fashioned from mops, and some carried metal chairs. Anything was better than going empty-handed. Dozens of them rushed into the side room of the hall. With the main entrance blocked, they had no choice but to peer through the windows. Outside, carnage reigned. The sheer number of zombies made it impossible to discern where the armored warrior had gone. All they could see were heads and limbs flying through the air, falling with a thud. I see him. Over there. Suddenly, a student pointed toward the zombie horde, shouting at the sight of a figure clad in full armor. That's him. Su Hao, standing at 185 centimeters, towering nearly 2 meters tall in his heavy armor and helmet, loomed above the average height of the zombies, which ranged from 160 to 180 centimeters. Once spotted, it became easy for him to be identified among the undead. At that moment, some classmates supported Suqing to join them in watching. No matter what, they had to break free this time. Otherwise, they would perish in the lecture hall from starvation. When Suqing arrived, the crowd was in awe. My goodness, what an incredible individual. Who is that? His blade moves so swiftly, his martial prowess is astounding. He is decapitating zombies effortlessly, none can touch him. Behind him is Senior Han Jiangxue, reduced to a mere assistant. Don't speak of her as just an assistant. Compared to her, we can only be considered novices. Stop gawking. At that moment, a classmate, filled with fervor, shouted. As a medical major with a penchant for history, he was particularly agitated. As the representative of his medical school cohort, he captured the attention of the crowd, brandishing a sharpened wooden spear to rally the spirits of his peers. Fellow students, others are tirelessly fighting for our survival. We cannot remain idle and dishearten them. In this apocalyptic scenario, our survival must be fought for by ourselves. Those armed, follow me as we break out. No matter what, we will escape today, or we shall all perish here. With that, he left no time for contemplation, swiftly opening the window and leaping out to join the fray. Let's fight. Slay them. Several courageous souls, emboldened by his leadership, followed suit, and those with weapons joined the exodus as well. Together they charged forth into battle against the horde of zombies. At that moment, if one were to disregard the undead, one might mistakenly believe they were witnessing a spirited brawl reminiscent of a high school showdown. Yet, the reality was far grimmer. as they were engaged in combat with a ravenous swarm of zombies. In the square, Su Hao, engaged in dispatching zombies, noticed the movement of the horde. He observed the medical students pouring out of the windows to join the fight. One could argue they were there to aid Su Hao, yet it was his presence that instilled in them the hope of victory. Regardless, their arrival brought Su Hao a sense of relief. At least he was not rescuing a passive onlooking crowd. Let us conclude this swiftly, he thought, accelerating his strikes. Empowered by his extraordinary dynamic vision, Su Hao possessed a visual acuity that surpassed the ordinary. He could discern the slightest movements of the zombies, capturing every nuance of their reactions. To him, the zombies posed no challenge. He was in a state of overwhelming dominance, the only limitation being his stamina. As several zombies lunged at him with menacing ferocity, it appeared they intended to devour him whole. However, Su Hao remained composed and expressionless, wielding his blade with instinctive precision. He swiftly executed slashes and thrusts, skillfully maneuvering to maintain optimal distance from the undead. In this relentless cycle of movement, the aggressive zombies fell one after another, much like stalks of wheat being harvested. On average, under Su Hao's relentless assault, a zombie succumbed every 15 seconds. With the assistance of his fellow medical students and Han Jiangxue, this pace escalated to approximately one every 12 seconds. In total, they faced over 200 zombies. Under the current prowess of Su Hao, augmented by his extraordinary dynamic vision, all adversaries fell within mere minutes. Thud! As the last zombie collapsed, Han Jiangxue, panting and wielding her blade, surveyed their surroundings beside Su Hao. She had dispatched over a dozen zombies. Similarly, her classmates from the medical school were also breathless, some even kneeling on the ground to catch their breath. Among the group of dozens, each had managed to eliminate one zombie on average. When combined with Han Jiangxue's tally, they accounted for approximately 50. While the remainder, over 100, had been vanquished by Su Hao. The group settled on the ground, some casting glances at Su Hao, who was clad in heavy armor, feeling an innate sense of terror and awe. Astonishingly, he had vanquished an immense number of foes, seemingly unfazed and barely winded. How could he achieve such feats? Was he even human? The murmurs of the crowd varied, each voice offering a distinct perspective. At that moment, Han Jiangxue approached a girl to inquire, "Is Senior Suqing here? Is she still alive?" The girl, momentarily taken aback, quickly pointed towards the interior, exclaiming, "Yes. Senior Suqing hasn't eaten in a long time. She shared her rations with us. Do you have any food? Please give her something to eat. I'll go check," Han Jiangxue said, as she ventured towards the inner room, holding her machete. Meanwhile, Su Hao scanned the area, intent on gathering intelligence on the girls, assessing whom he might recruit. His demeanor was not one of indifference, but rather a pursuit of efficiency. Su Xiao, comprehensive score, 71. Lu Dongmei, comprehensive score, 57. Jia Jingjing, comprehensive score, 44. After reviewing several candidates, the scores were disappointingly low, indicating that fortune in reality does not accumulate nor guarantee a minimum. Ultimately, upon probing the interior, he encountered a woman who met the standards of a goddess and was somewhat familiar to him. Suqing, age, 24. External comprehensive score, 95. Detailed data. Internal comprehensive score, 97. Detailed data. Ability comprehensive score, 91. Detailed data. Recruitment suggestion, extremely high. The above scores averaged to 60, with a perfect score of 100. The goddess team mission required an average score of 85 across 3 categories to qualify. Remarkably, Su Hao had encountered 2 candidates who surpassed the threshold, both exceeding 90. Perhaps this was a consequence of being in a major city and attending school here. At that juncture, Han Jiangxue approached, and upon seeing Suqing, who was typically referred to as senior, she too addressed others in the same manner. Quietly, she leaned towards Su Hao and inquired, "Do you have any drinks?" Suqing is feeling a bit faint from hunger. At this moment, it was essential to discuss the merits and drawbacks of sugary beverages. In the apocalypse, every flaw transforms into a virtue. Chapter 026. The naive yet charming Suqing. He is my superior. Sugary beverages, in times of peace, are laden with high sugar content and energy, leading to obesity and health issues. However, in the apocalypse, these usual shortcomings metamorphose into advantages. The elevated sugar content can invigorate the mind, enhance mood, and optimize one's mental state. The high energy allows for greater physical endurance, faster recovery, and mitigates hunger pangs. Ultimately, these drinks are safe and do not induce illness. Therefore, beverages such as Assam milk tea, iced black tea, and cola become invaluable resources in this dire world, a future currency of survival. There are still a few bottles left. Take them. Suqing is on the verge of collapse from hunger. Su Hao directly retrieves a bottle from his space and tosses it to Han Jiangxue, instructing her to give it to Suqing to restore her strength. Han Jiangxue receives the drink, climbs through the window, and eagerly opens it, beginning to feed the increasingly dazed Suqing. As the cola touches her lips, muscle memory and instinct compel Suqing to instinctively purse her lips, yearning for the liquid to enter her mouth. Han Jiangxue feeds her sip by sip. Once Suqing takes her first sip, a spark ignites in her eyes, and she gradually begins to drink more. Surrounding onlookers, witnessing the cola, start to swallow hard. Some even feel their stomachs grumbling. It is only the fourth day of the apocalypse, yet the harsh environment has rendered them salivating at the mere sight of cola, consumed by craving. What will happen after a month, a year, or even 10 years? Would they resort to murder for a single bottle of cola? It is not an impossibility. Seeing no one rush to snatch it, they understand Suqing's plight and manage to contain themselves. At this moment, the boy who previously rallied his classmates to fight emerges after resting, calling out to Su Hao. Are you a classmate, Great One? Thank you immensely. Without you, our escape today could have cost many lives. What is the situation at the school now? Where are the remaining students gathered? Let us regroup. By the way, I am Su Hao. Upon hearing the voice, Su Hao turns to look. Su Hao, taken aback by the imposing figure of the armored warrior, instinctively halts and takes a step back. Su Hao removes his helmet and secures it at his waist, addressing him. There are still dozens of survivors in the sports building. You can gather there. After a moment, he adds, they lack an organizer or leader, so their morale and goals are absent. Once you arrive, you can take charge, organize efforts, and collect supplies to rescue your classmates. Su Hao's words illuminate Su Hao's mind. Yet, with a curious gaze, she looked at Su Hao. How could someone so formidable not be a leader of the organization? Was his statement a mere coincidence or an unintentional admission of his desire to lead? Or did he simply prefer the role of a warrior? Great One, I shall not linger in school for long. I am not suited for collective endeavors, understand? I see. Su Hao replied, gently patting his shoulder. Do your best. At the very least, your earlier performance is the most indicative of leadership I have witnessed since the apocalypse began. This cataclysm presents an opportunity for you to showcase your capabilities. Su Hao felt a flush of embarrassment creep over him, unsure whether it stemmed from the thrill of being acknowledged or the shame of having his intentions unveiled. Nevertheless, he undeniably possessed greater abilities than the average student. If he could lead others to gather supplies and rescue fellow classmates, it would be far superior to a huddle of individuals merely existing as fodder. After a moment of rest for the group, Su Hao surveyed them and addressed Su Hao once more. You lead the others to the gymnasium. There are still some provisions there. Leave Suqing to me and Jiang Shui. Upon hearing this, Su Hao quickly grasped the implication. The esteemed individual before him was likely here specifically for Suqing, as Jiang Shui was already acquainted with her. Their rescue was probably merely a secondary concern. Understood. With a nod, Su Hao rallied his peers, proclaiming, the Great One has indicated that the gymnasium is a gathering place for more students. We shall unite there. Strength lies in numbers, enabling us to clear out zombies and locate food, thus rescuing our fellow classmates. Let us proceed. Most ordinary individuals tend to follow blindly, and at this juncture, there were no better alternatives. Hence, upon hearing that they could join other classmates and find sustenance, everyone agreed and followed Su Hao. Gradually, the crowd began to disperse, with some even approaching Su Hao to express their gratitude. A few, surprisingly, still had battery life on their phones and requested a photograph. After a while, the two girls who had initially tended to Suqing also departed. At this moment, only Su Hao, Han Jiangxue, and Suqing remained in the medical school's lecture building. Suqing sipped a third of a can of cola, and her condition improved significantly, as the beverage quickly revitalized her spirit. The energy from liquid nourishment is absorbed rapidly into the bloodstream through the stomach lining, enabling swift restoration. Akin to how drinking a sugary beverage is more effective than eating when experiencing hypoglycemia. Of course, administering glucose intravenously would be even more immediate. After resting for a while, Suqing finally felt strong enough to speak. Jiang Shui, I thought I might perish from hunger. Are you all right? I am fine, Han Jiangxue replied, assisting Suqing in taking a seat before turning to Su Hao and candidly stating, I have joined Su Hao to form a small group. He is my leader. What? Suqing exclaimed in surprise, glancing at Su Hao. During her freshman year, Han Jiangxue became acquainted with Suqing, and their relationship has spanned for years. Although they are not particularly close, Han Jiangxue's background, beauty, and abilities suggest that for her to recognize someone as her superior, that person must far surpass her in many respects, earning her admiration and respect. To put it bluntly, mere superficial admiration is insufficient. One must conquer her spirit. Even though Suqing was momentarily dazed, she could not help but witness Su Hao's remarkable prowess as he dispatched the horde of zombies with effortless grace, showcasing the pinnacle of violent aesthetics. The emergence of such a warrior in contemporary society is indeed a rarity. With her understanding of Han Jiangshua's personality, Suqing suddenly found herself awakening to a realization. While Suqing conversed with Han Jiangshua, Su Hao was not idle. He began to scrutinize the detailed evaluations Suqing had received. Han Jiangshua's ratings were low in internal qualities, while Suqing's were exceptionally high. Internal evaluation. Her heart brims with compassion, yet she is not naive. She possesses rationality and harbors a yearning for a beautiful life. She is intelligent, albeit with a somewhat foolish disposition, willing to confront darkness while remaining optimistic and sensible. In essence, she is kind yet rational. A cheerful spirit with a touch of innocence. Su Hao found this character quite agreeable, considering her a refined yet simple-hearted individual. Thus, she would be easier to win over than Han Jiangshua, for she is not truly foolish. Upon witnessing Han Jiangshua's choices, she is unlikely to resist. Chapter 027. The Cause of Zombie Evolution. The fusion of plants and animals. After Han Jiangshua finished introducing herself, Suqing laboriously raised her hand to introduce herself to Su Hao. My name is Suqing, a graduate student before the apocalypse, specializing in clinical medicine and sports medicine. I have known Jiangshua for several years. Su Hao, who was in his freshman year, reached out to shake her hand. Then, just as she was taken aback, he gently pulled her up, allowing Han Jiangshua to steady her. We don't have much time. There is something here that I want you to see. Suqing hesitated momentarily. What is it? You'll find out soon enough. With that, Han Jiangshua guided Suqing to the window, while Su Hao wrapped one arm around her waist and the other over her shoulder, effortlessly lifting her through the window. Suqing gasped inwardly. What incredible strength! Han Jiangshua watched from behind, biting her lip, her mind involuntarily recalling the scene from last night, when Su Hao had easily lifted her despite her fatigue. Outside, the sight of countless corpses caused Suqing's body to tense up. There were over 200 zombie bodies strewn about in a gruesome spectacle, overwhelming the senses. Su Hao sensed her unease and gently patted her on the back to redirect her focus. Don't dwell on this. You will see much more in the days to come. Suqing felt a hint of nervousness. However, the playful gesture of patting her bottom significantly alleviated her tension. She cast a sidelong glance at Su Hao, then furtively observed Han Jiangshua beside her, who remained indifferent. Soon after, Su Hao approached a relatively intact corpse. Under Suqing's astonished gaze, he deftly made two incisions, one to eviscerate and the other to perform a cranial operation, exposing the chest cavity and brain, pointing to the greenish-purple veins. Su Hao remarked, a few days ago, zombies lacked these markings, or they were not prominent. Their mobility was comparable to a leisurely stroll. Today, however, this group of zombies has attained a normal walking pace. They are evolving, indicating that they do not decay or die a natural death. Even after 4 days in June, there is no sign of rot. So, will they learn to run or even ambush in the future? What do you think these greenish-purple veins signify? Suqing was profoundly shocked by Su Hao's elucidation, completely unaware of this phenomenon. He appeared to be among the first to uncover it. He demonstrated the reactions and changes in the zombies' internal organs and brains after puncturing them. After a moment of contemplation, Suqing offered her initial instinctive answer. These veins and reactions resemble biological bacteria. Indeed, they are akin to biological bacteria, Su Hao affirmed, yet he added, it's not entirely accurate. There must be more that hasn't been analyzed. While biological bacteria are a factor, they alone cannot fully govern the zombie's actions and evolution. Judging solely by the organs within the chest cavity and the brain, their species and genes are undoubtedly transforming, and they will inevitably become a different form of life. Suqing examined the corpse that had been deceased for 4 days. For days without decay or rigor mortis, its skin merely turned a deathly gray, with faint greenish-purple veins visible. If this trend continues, and if the zombies remain alive and uncorrupted after a month, it would conclusively demonstrate that they are an entirely different organism. It is also plausible that bacteria, cell colonies, or instinctual consciousness are in control. The resolution has not changed, suggesting that it is incorrect. Based on the changes in grounding, it can initially be determined that zombies do not qualify as dead, but rather as a new form of evolution. The greenish-purple veins can be classified as plant-based. Now, having identified biological bacteria and plant genes, what else is still lacking? Su Hao pondered deeply, observing the corpse that had not decayed or changed after 4 days, merely exhibiting atrophied muscles and body. Suddenly, he had an epiphany and speculated, wait a moment, rather than merely hypothesizing about these biological bacteria patterns. Is it possible that the biological microbes coexist with the human body, initially eradicating the previous human essence, leaving only instincts and a fraction of bodily functions? This would allow the microbes to better control the zombies and facilitate their malignant evolution. Thus, the final crucial factor is not merely the microbes themselves, but also the animal genes within the human body that contribute to adaptive evolution. Suqing and Han Jiangxue were taken aback by Su Hao's conjecture, both astonished and delighted. Indeed, it seemed they had forgotten the human aspect altogether, automatically deeming the human entity as dead. However, it was previously stated that while the human was dead, the body remained. Therefore, the genetic material of the body still exists. Is it the malignant evolution resulting from the combination of the plant genes of the microbes and the animal genes of the human body? Resolution 80,100. Task completion. Has the zombie evolved? Task summary. Congratulations on uncovering the fundamental cause of zombie evolution. While it may not be of great utility, it will provide substantial assistance in future encounters with zombies. Thus, the reward is elevated to a specialized one. Task reward. 1 chance for an infinite divine level lottery related to plant abilities. Plant abilities? As long as my body doesn't mutate, I'm fine with anything else. Confirmed. Su Hao nodded and typed the final answer. What I just proposed is fundamentally accurate, Suqing. Suqing pondered seriously for a moment before nodding in agreement. Theoretically, it holds true, though lacking empirical research. Nonetheless, it serves as a valid reference and is quite rigorous. Glancing at the time, Su Hao noted it was nearly noon. He observed the still feeble Suqing and the two who were close to hunger. He waved his hand. Let us head back, grab something to eat, and prepare for the afternoon. Han Jiangxue immediately nodded, her prompt response indicating she was merely acquiescing without much thought, simply following along. Suqing looked at Han Jiangxue with curiosity. This was not merely a matter of answering. It was an issue of attitude. Han Jiangxue's earlier affirmation signified, whatever Su Hao says is the truth. She too nodded in agreement. Subsequently, Su Hao led the way while Han Jiangxue supported Suqing as they made their way back to the sports building. Along the route, they encountered several wandering zombies, which Su Hao effortlessly dispatched with a couple of strikes. Suqing internally marveled at his formidable strength. Following such an armored warrior bestowed an overwhelming sense of security, as if there were no worries at all, even to the extent of sleeping on the spot overnight. As the trio distanced themselves from the art building, Suqing gazed at the structure teeming with zombies, sighing with a hint of sadness. The interior and exterior were densely populated with the undead, their figures swaying in the hallways, classrooms, and every nook and cranny. On the once artistically vibrant canvas, blood has now been splattered, rendering it grotesquely gruesome and dark. Chapter 028. The Reunion of Survivors, a humble inquiry to Su Hao at the sports building. When Su Hao and his companions arrived at the sports building and encountered Chen Jiyu, both parties felt an essence of relief and joy amidst the dire circumstances. As the saying goes, it is human nature to huddle together for warmth. The subsequent issues arise from the complexities of human nature and needs that follow this unity. Are you all students from the medical school? Chen Jiyu inquired hastily upon seeing the group. What has happened at the medical school? Are there others? Su Hao shook his head. At the medical school, it seems that we are the only ones left. Upon hearing this, Chen Jiyu sighed. Oh, by the way, how did you arrive here? How did you know we were here? A classmate clad in full armor, named Su Hao, along with Han Jiangxue, came from your location, right? Indeed. Chen Jiyu and the others brightened at this news. Brother Su is incredibly formidable, a true warrior. Hearing this, Su Hao felt a twinge of confusion. Then why did you not accompany him to scavenge for supplies and rescue others? I noticed he and Han Jiangxue left together. Chen Jiyu's words prompted a wave of embarrassment and shame among most of the group. They were still students, and their resilience was not yet thickened by experience. Being confronted so directly, it was a wonder they did not respond with anger. Observing this, Su Hao surmised that this group had no desire to engage in combat with the zombies. Reaching this place with food was already a considerable achievement. Why would they need to confront the undead? Wait a moment, what if there is a rescue? Su Hao sighed, reflecting on Su Hao's assertion that he was unsuited for camaraderie, indicating he might leave in the future. Yet, Su Hao possessed the means and strength to leave. This group, however, still relied on the collective strength of the masses. Fortunately, among us, there are those with some medical knowledge. As long as we can manage minor ailments without equipment, we should avoid the simple fate of dying from trivial illnesses. Let us take a moment to rest, Su Hao suggested, then we can seek out easily scavenged supplies. If we remain idle, our food will eventually run out. Would you not agree? For those unwilling to fight, the zombies cannot move swiftly. We could attempt to lure them, facilitating a division of labor. We can try this in the afternoon, right? He pleaded earnestly. Eventually, nearly 20 classmates expressed a willingness to attempt this. However, the remaining dozens remained unmoved, still clinging to the hope of rescue. They believed that venturing out to fight could result in death, but staying back would allow them to survive until the food ran out. Better to endure a miserable existence than to face certain death. If some wish to take on that task, let them do so, Su Hao observed quietly. He was also contemplating alternative methods and management strategies. After a while, Su Hao returned with Han Jiangxue and Suqing. In an instant, many gazes turned complex, especially in light of Su Hao's heroic act of saving so many lives. This stirred a sense of guilt among those who felt like mere tools of despair, as if they were betraying something vital. Yet, some even twisted this guilt and sense of betrayal into reasons to ostracize Su Hao, deeming him an outsider. Indeed, humanity is profoundly intricate. Upon Su Hao's return, Chen Jiu and Su Hao promptly approached, offering unopened food to the trio. You're finally back. We thought you might have gone to another place. Brother, you haven't eaten yet, have you? Please, have something. Su Hao accepted the food from both of them, noting that it was all sealed, which posed no issue. He would certainly refuse anything that had been opened, not from fear of contamination, but from caution. Go ahead and eat, he said, distributing the food to Han Jiangxue and Suqing before retreating to a shaded area to rest. Han Jiangxue, taking Suqing with her, headed to another spot to recuperate. Before departing, she winked at Su Hao, her gaze holding a peculiar significance. What did that mean? Was she engaging in some form of psychological preparation? Settling into the shade, Su Hao opened a soda and prepared to eat. At that moment, Chen Jiu and Su Hao came over to chat. As they approached, Chen Jiu, with great curiosity, asked, Brother, how many zombies did you take down this time? This query required no reply from Su Hao himself, as Su Hao interjected. Most of the zombies surrounding the medical school were eliminated by Su Hao. Chen Jiu gasped in awe. That's incredible. How can someone be so formidable? Brother, if we train hard enough, can we reach your level? Chen Jiu asked, his eyes filled with hope. Su Hao pondered for a moment, then replied, perhaps in due time. Everyone will have the opportunity to grow stronger. The two were taken aback, their expressions frozen in surprise. Chen Jiu quickly pressed on. Why? What does that mean? With a bite of bread in his mouth, Su Hao looked at them and said, Don't you sense that your stamina and physical condition have improved somewhat? The zombies today have evolved. If you haven't noticed any changes, then you belong to the less gifted. Those with talent should have felt it by now. Upon hearing this, Chen Jiu clenched his fists and made an attempt to assess his own progress. Su Hao followed suit, and after a brief exchange of gestures, they both acknowledged, there is a certain feeling, yes. In truth, it was quite faint, perhaps only perceivable through intense combat. Moreover, how could their innate abilities possibly compare to Han Jiangxue's? Han Jiangxue possesses an extraordinary ability with a talent level of 96. Once the apocalypse begins, her transformation will occur swiftly, yet the nature of her awakened powers remains uncertain. After some idle chatter, Su Hao observed Chen Jiu's casual demeanor and realized he had yet to address any serious matters. Thus, he took it upon himself to speak earnestly. Brother, I shall refer to you as the esteemed one. To be honest, I wish to manage these individuals as we strive for survival in the face of the apocalypse. Rather than waiting for rescue, self-reliance seems prudent, yet I am aware that these people are challenging to govern. Therefore, I seek your guidance on how to collaborate with you. Upon hearing this, Chen Jiu was taken aback, his jovial demeanor abruptly shifting as he recognized the gravity of their circumstances. This was not a mere pre-apocalypse existence, but a dire reality. He observed Chen Jiu deep in thought, while Su Hao listened intently. Su Hao chuckled resignedly. If you truly wish to manage them effectively, collaborating with me would be a mistake. Otherwise, once I depart, they will be even less inclined to heed your authority. My honest advice for managing a crowd in these dire times is this. Either you must possess enough strength to command their physical obedience, or you must wield sufficient cunning and ruthlessness to ensure their psychological compliance through strict management. Remember, this is the apocalypse. It will be harsher than any chaotic era. The course of action lies within your hands. After speaking, he noticed Han Jiangxue beckoning to him, while Suqing's face flushed with embarrassment. He patted both Su Hao and Chen Jiu on the shoulders, leaving them with a parting remark. The apocalypse has reshuffled the deck. If you wish to seize opportunities, strive diligently. With that, he picked up a bag of chips and departed. Chapter 029, The Dark Future of the Apocalypse. Han Jiangxue's influence on Suqing after Su Hao left, Su Hao and Chen Jiu fell into profound contemplation. They retreated to a corner to converse privately, seeking out individuals one by one for discreet discussions. Meanwhile, Han Jiangxue had just seated herself with Suqing in a shaded area, food in hand. They began to eat, and Suqing took a sip of her drink, stealing glances at Su Hao from afar. Due to the poor ventilation, she soon became aware of an unpleasant odor emanating from her greasy hair, having not washed it for nearly 2 days prior to the apocalypse, and now enduring an additional 4 days without a shower. It had been nearly a week since her last cleansing. The oiliness had become so pronounced that she could detect its scent. Coupled with the lack of bathing, her revival felt utterly uncomfortable. Suqing emitted a plaintive sound akin to a distressed cat, expressing her discomfort. Although she presented herself as an older sister figure, her personality was quite different. Han Jiangxue, accustomed to this, barely glanced at Suqing before asking, "What troubles you?" Suqing turned to Han Jiangxue, replying, "Do I smell bad?" Upon closer inspection, it became evident that Han Jiangxue's hair, as well as her skin, radiated an immaculate purity. The looseness and ethereal quality of her hair suggested it had not been unwashed for days. She immediately reached out to grasp a strand of Han Jiangxue's hair and inhaled deeply, her face instantly registering shock. "This scent, did you bathe just yesterday? Where did the water come from? Pray tell, did you bathe with mineral water?" Han Jiangxue swallowed the morsel of bread in her mouth, her exquisite features devoid of expression as she replied in a calm tone, "Yes, I bathed yesterday. Su Hao and I ventured to eliminate the zombies around Ming Lake, and subsequently took a bath together. I even polished his armor until it gleamed." Suqing's eyes widened in disbelief. "You went all the way to Ming Lake just to bathe after slaying zombies? Is that even remotely sensible? You two are incredible." Han Jiangxue cast a glance at her. "When we set out yesterday, the locals regarded us in a similar manner, albeit with a greater number of incredulous gazes." Suqing pondered for a moment before concluding, "I suppose that's true." However, in the next instant, a thought seemed to strike her, and she widened her eyes in surprise. Covertly glancing at Su Hao before leaning closer to Han Jiangxue to whisper, "So, did you two bathe together? A male and a female? Did you undress? Or was it a rotation? Did anything happen in the lake? Do tell." Suqing's face was alight with curiosity as she playfully prodded Han Jiangxue's waist. Han Jiangxue remained expressionless, but a slight blush crept onto her cheeks when considering the implications of their actions. However, she responded candidly, "We bathed together. But how could we possibly do so in the lake? It would be far too perilous." Suqing gasped, "So, you did engage in something after all?" "Indeed," Han Jiangxue affirmed. Suqing, now brimming with excitement and enthusiasm, felt her previously pallid complexion flush with color. "Jiangxue, I never expected you to be this kind of person. After 4 years of appearing indifferent to men, you've suddenly claimed a male god amidst the apocalypse?" Han Jiangxue contemplated for a moment. "I believe it is I who was ensnared." "What?" Suqing's astonishment grew. "What transpired? Pray, tell me everything," she implored, her demeanor shifting to one of playful affection despite being the senior by 3 years. The dynamic was amusing, as the mature figure sought the affection of the younger. After finishing the bread in her hand, Han Jiangxue turned to Suqing and spoke earnestly. "I have a question for you, Suqing." Upon witnessing her serious expression, Suqing was initially taken aback, but quickly adopted a more solemn demeanor. "Go on. After the apocalypse, do you wish to align yourself with a community of survivors, seeking warmth in numbers, official support, or establishing a settlement? Or would you prefer to accompany acquaintances, seeking out various elites to form a small group, striving for an idyllic existence free of shame and restraint? You have read numerous novels, reflect upon them." Han Jiangxue is not one who indulges in novels. However, she is acutely aware of the voracious reading habits of Suqing. Yet, Suqing's choice of literature is predominantly of a risque nature. The mere thought of a post-apocalyptic environment, coupled with her own appearance, leads her to ponder the dire consequences of mingling within human settlements. In a world where societal structures have crumbled, even if a favorable refuge exists, is she truly willing to wager her very body? Pray tell. A single misstep could render her a mere weapon of war. In such dire straits, it would be far more advantageous to become a favored plaything of a deity, at least in the realms portrayed in those scandalous tales. As long as one possesses strength and capability, such a fate is infinitely more pleasurable than life in a settlement. "I choose the latter," Suqing responded without hesitation. "Precisely," Han Jiangxue acknowledged with a subtle nod. "Su Hao and I are set to pursue that path." She began to enumerate on her fingers, gathering resources, striving for growth, and seeking out talent. All these endeavors will proceed concurrently. You are the talent I have recommended to Su Hao. With your clinical expertise, knowledge of sports medicine, and surgical skills, coupled with your appealing appearance, he should be inclined to accept you. We shan't linger at the academy for long, regardless of your decision. Su Hao and I will be departing in a couple of days, Han Jiangxue stated, her gaze shifting towards Suqing, who let out a sigh. In this apocalyptic scenario, everything has transformed. The choice is yours to make. At her words, Suqing visibly panicked. The thought of Han Jiangxue and Su Hao departing without her, leaving her alone in the settlement, was terrifying. Yes, the settlement requires doctors, but with so many medical students around, as long as one can address the majority of ailments, does it truly matter whether one is a graduate student or an undergraduate? The distinction is minimal, perhaps only in clinical practice. What will she do then? Even if the school community remains benevolent initially, after some time, be it a month or a year, how could she avoid encountering darker factions? Would she not be doomed? Would she truly become a weapon of war? That is a fate she cannot bear. Jiangxue, please don't abandon me. Take me with you. I want to follow you. Suqing exclaimed, suddenly wrapping her arms around Han Jiangshue's waist, playfully seeking her affection, completely shedding her previous composed demeanor. The earlier calmness had merely been a facade born of hunger. Now, her true nature emerged. Upon hearing this, Han Jiangxue gently ruffled Suqing's hair, a barely perceptible smile gracing her lips. This junior of hers was quite adept at emotional persuasion. Rest assured, I have already put in a good word for you. Su Hao should be quite pleased. I will inquire with him shortly. However, the final decision rests with him. I am merely a follower in this endeavor, do you understand? Suqing nodded eagerly, her enthusiasm palpable. Thus, this was the reason behind Han Jiangshue's earlier gestures towards Su Hao. When he approached, Han Jiangxue pointed towards Suqing, discreetly exchanged glances, and then spoke. Suqing, our senior, wishes to join our team. Although I recommended her, I seek your consent. She is quite obedient and is studying clinical and sports medicine. After our extensive zombie slaying sessions, she can assist us with massages to help us unwind. After tiring sword practice, it was she who provided relief. Suqing nodded eagerly, affirming my words. Meanwhile, Su Hao maintained a calm exterior, though internally he pondered, what is happening? Chapter 030. Winning over Suqing and reaping rewards. Su Hao observed Suqing's expression, marked by fear and concern, as well as her reliance on Han Jiangxue. He quickly discerned the situation. Suqing had likely been influenced by Han Jiangxue. This tactic, it seemed, was employed for efficiency. Prolonged discussions were unnecessary. It was wiser to expedite matters and proceed with the next phase of their plan. Clearing his throat, Su Hao exchanged a knowing glance with Han Jiangxue. He then addressed Suqing, stating, Jiangxue has likely conveyed everything pertinent to you. Joining the team requires contributions, not merely taking. He emphasized loyalty and capability. Disloyalty rendered one unusable, while those with abilities who do not contribute are even less desirable. Upon hearing this, Suqing's face flushed with a mixture of shyness and anticipation, and she nodded hesitantly. I understand, you can count on me. Su Hao tilted his head, sensing that they were not quite on the same wavelength, though the essence of their conversation was aligned. Very well, Su Hao replied, nodding in agreement. Welcome to the team, Suqing. I hope we will not regret this decision. Suqing nodded vigorously, feeling a wave of relief wash over her, a sense of security enveloping her. Congratulations on recruiting the goddess, Suqing. Mission accomplished. Assembling the goddess team. Reward obtained. One-time selection of infinite divine grade. You may view detailed information about members Suqing later. With Suqing's inclusion, Su Hao's team had now grown to 3, a nascent formation. He recognized that this number was still minimal, but the future was promising. Finding goddesses was no simple task. Beep, you have now recruited 2 goddesses. Goddess team mission updated. Upon recruiting 3 goddesses, the system will refresh, enhancing the goddess team buff. Goddess team buff. Attribute sharing. Attribute sharing. The host will receive a 30-point attribute boost from all goddesses, while the goddesses will gain a 15-point boost from the host, calculated prior to the enhancement. Upon reading about the attribute sharing buff, Su Hao momentarily doubted his own eyes. He can gain an additional enhancement of 30 attributes combined from all the goddesses, while the goddesses can receive a 15-point boost from him. Although the mutual enhancements are calculated prior to any increase to prevent a chaotic imbalance, the attributes remain exceedingly remarkable. With just 3 ordinary goddesses, Su Hao's attributes nearly approach the human limit. One wonders what might happen upon the awakening of his innate talents. Accumulating 5, 10, or more in the future would lead to an astonishing accumulation of attributes. Furthermore, the goddesses also benefit from his existence. A 15-point enhancement is significant, especially as he matures. Su Hao can already foresee his path to accumulating these values. During the midday break, everyone is feeling fatigued, particularly the medical students who have gone 2 days without sustenance. After a hard-fought escape, they quickly succumb to sleep once they relax after eating. Meanwhile, Chen Jiu and Su Hao are deep in discussion, likely contemplating how to effectively lead this team and ensure obedience for better command. In a game, one can easily direct subordinates to follow orders, even to the point of sacrificing themselves. However, in reality, manipulating people is far more complex. Forming a small team is manageable, but rallying a larger group is an entirely different challenge. Consequently, Su Hao has no desire to engage in power plays or schemes, even if he comprehends them. He prefers not to partake. The path he currently follows is one that satisfies him. In the afternoon, within the cool and ventilated area of the sports building, Han Jiangxue rests against the corner with her eyes closed. while Su Hao reclines his head on her lap, relishing the comfort of her knee. He also enjoys the faint fragrance, although that would be contingent upon her hygiene. Humans are not machines. Both body and mind require rest. The midday heat and the earlier battle against numerous zombies have left even Su Hao yearning for a brief respite before embarking on further endeavors in the afternoon. A few hours of rest are inconsequential. After a brief nap, Suqing approaches and sits beside Su Hao. She glances at him and, upon confirming he is awake, quietly initiates a conversation. What should we do next? When shall we depart? Su Hao keeps his eyes closed but turns slightly to face her, responding, "What is it?" Suqing feels a bit shy but speaks candidly. "Before we leave the school, can we check the parking lot? My belongings are in the car, change of clothes, a medical emergency kit, and a box of 3 squirrel snacks." Han Jiangxue, leaning against the wall, suppresses a smile at this, her expression betraying her amusement. Su Hao, however, appears contemplative and counters with a question. "Which car?" "Suqing, huh?" Han Jiangxue, "Is that the crux of the matter?" "Indeed it is." Suqing immediately replied, "I want to." Su Hao finally opened his eyes. "Is it the range-extended vehicle?" "Yes, the L6. All right. Let us take a look before we depart. We're leaving tomorrow." "That's soon." "Well, if there are too many zombies, then forget it." Indeed. After their conversation, Han Jiangxue gently caressed Su Hao's cheek, gradually coming to an understanding. Initially, she had been perplexed, assuming that Su Hao would dismiss Suqing's seemingly foolish request. Would there really be a shortage of clothes? Once they left the campus, clothing stores would be plentiful, and designer brands would be readily available. What about medicine? There was a large pharmacy within 500 meters, and at most, 2 kilometers away, ordinary medications were abundant. What use was 1 box of food? They would need to raid supermarkets and cold storage facilities. Thus, Han Jiangxue found Suqing's naive inquiries amusing. However, Su Hao's next question took her by surprise. "Is it the range-extended vehicle?" This single inquiry illuminated Han Jiangxue's understanding. Ah yes, traveling on foot was far too inefficient. Gasoline vehicles boasted high endurance, but produced loud engine and exhaust noises. Electric cars were safe, yet cumbersome in terms of range and charging. Only the range-extended vehicle stood out as the most suitable option in this apocalyptic scenario, if not the sole choice. It offered endurance, quiet operation, efficiency, and safety. She realized she had been rather short-sighted, lacking the foresight that Su Hao possessed. Yet, a sense of joy bubbled within Han Jiangxue. After all, Su Hao was the leader of their team. The stronger their leader, the more they admired him, remaining loyal, convinced, and ultimately happier. As they rested into the afternoon, Su Hao reviewed his tasks. He had made considerable progress on the campus assignments, with only the range-extended vehicle and the sweeping of Zhang University left to complete. Excluding the 1,000 kills objective, the sweep of Zhang University required at least a 35 progress rate. He checked how much was left. Task: Sweep Zhang University. 2835. It involved several cafeterias, dormitories, the sports complex, the arts building, the medical school, and the paths traversed. The task merely required him to assess these areas, not eradicate all the zombies. Given this, Su Hao glanced at the map on his watch, including the parking lot, roads, campus gates, squares, and some open areas. Reaching a 35 completion rate seemed feasible. This meant that he could explore a few more locations that afternoon, and tomorrow, he would visit the parking lot, taking a leisurely stroll along the way before finally driving off. As for the residential areas, that would be too laborious. Investigating those places was an arduous and thankless endeavor, neither worthwhile nor efficient.